The rugged beauty of the Western Cape in all its glory. Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to coverage of Day 5, Stage 4 of the 2022 Absa Cape Epic. We've had it all over the last 4 days, halfway stage of the event, and legs are getting tired, minds are perhaps fatiguing, but it's all part of this drama. Anneke Langveld, welcome back, and Neil Gardner. Anneke, that midweek, mid-race vibe and feel amongst the races. What's going on in those bodies and minds now as they look back and look forward?
Yeah, it's very much a turning point right now. Instead of counting up, you start counting down the stages. So it's good, and it's also a good thing to be feeling good still, because there's a long way to go.
Well, we saw yesterday, Neil, Gail Gega and Lucas Baum, the newcomers to the event, really lighted up with a monster breakaway and a stage win. How do you see today going? Because they're now in the mix in the overall, and there's only 9 minutes between the top four.
Well, they're the main animators of the race for sure, and we've seen them. We saw a fantastic performance from them in the prologue, and we expect to see more from them today. They had a couple of bad days in the very beginning, but it's likely they'll be animators today again. They certainly are motivated. We
saw some action in the women's race. It's also pretty animated there as well. A win for the all-South African team yesterday, Lil and Strauss, and an aggressive performance by the other South African team, Preen and Rabi.
Yesterday was definitely a day where the all South African teams were feeling really good. We saw the private client holdings team really animating and actually getting a gap and attacking at the very beginning, being pulled back, and then it was all the battle between the Faces Roller and the Specialized team to battle it out at the very end. And we saw Faces Roller Roller having the tactical overhand, knowing that they had to be in the front the last 3 kilometers, they executed that finish to perfection.
But it is still the Specialized team who have the lead in the race. And Canyon Northwave lead the men's race going into stage 5. But before we look at today's race and the drama, let's look back at a very, very intriguing stage 4.
We had some hard stages the last few days. The first one was very hard. Yesterday was very long and a lot of headwind. So a bit tired this morning.
I'm a little nervous. It's another 101 kilometers, which is just going to be another long day.
That was actually a good day, let me not complain. But listen, whoever designed the course at the end, hey, we gotta have words, man. That was hard.
Good, tough little finish. I think everyone thought it was an easy day with a faster start, but it's tough little last 15k, but good.
Very good, very tough, very fast, and really happy to finish this stage.
That was, it was nice in the beginning, not so nice at the end, eh? Cheeky little climb, it was good.
Nice, it's better than the first 2 days. No, we really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's nice. Looking forward to the next few days.
The Absa Cape Epic is often referred to as the Tour de France of mountain biking, and for good reason. This is the most prestigious off-road stage race in the world, attracting Olympic champions, world champions and national title holders. In its 18th incarnation, the Western Cape of South Africa is the host location, offering spectacular views and some of the finest mountain bike trails on the planet. This year, the 8-day stage race covers 681 kilometers with almost 17,000 meters of climbing. Today is stage 3, and although the numbers are less than the previous 2 stages, it's still far from an easy route.
The riders will loop out of Greyton and start off with the relatively flat farming tracks that are synonymous with the Greyton region. The second half of the course is filled with rocky single tracks and high-speed descents. The riders cover 101 kilometres and climb 2,250 metres before returning to Greyton. Canyon Northwave MTB of Martin Stosek and Andreas Seewald are in the yellow leaders jersey at the start of the third stage. Yesterday's winners, Scott Schramm, Nino Schurter and Lars Forster, are aiming for their second consecutive stage win. The start gun goes and stage 3 is underway. The temperature has dropped from yesterday, which will benefit the riders from the Northern Hemisphere. The pace is blistering for the first 2 hours. 47 kilometres into the race, Speed Company Racing make their move. Lucas Baum and Georg Egger took second on the prologue and now lead Santa Cruz by 30 seconds. All the rest of the favourite teams, including the yellow leaders jersey, are a further 2 minutes behind. Over the next 20 kilometres, Baum and Egger push ahead and gain a further 2-minute lead on Maxime Marot and Keegan Swenson from Santa Cruz. The chasing pack of 7 teams are now 3 minutes and 40 seconds off the pace. Matt Beers and Chris Blevins from Toyota 91 Specialized are having a great day. They managed to break away and catch Santa Cruz. Team Bulls and the red African leaders jersey Imbuko Typedev are with a big group, including the yellow jersey Seewald and Stosek. Leaders Speed Company Racing's Georg Egger and Lucas Baum hit a blind corner and overshoot at 90 kilometres, but they can smell victory and are back on the trail in a heartbeat. A decisive moment for yesterday's winners, Scott Schramm. Forster is now struggling and can't hold the pace of the chasing pack. They drop back 6.5 minutes from the leaders. Newbies Speed Company Racing, Georg Egger and Lucas Baum take their well-deserved first win in 3 hours and 48 minutes. Toyota 91 Specialized, Matt Beers and Chris Blevins cross the line 2 minutes and 15 seconds later in second and make up some time in the GC. Overall leaders Canyon Northwave, Andreas Seewald and Martin Stosek are third with 3 minutes and 27 seconds behind the young German stage winners. Canyon Northwave take third. Toyota 91 Specialized follows in second. And with a new winner again on this year's Absa Cape Epic, Speed Company Racing, Georg Egger and Lucas Baum take the stage win and climb to second in the overall rankings. The yellow leader jersey stays with Seewald and Stosek from Canyon ahead of stage 4. On the women's start line, stage 2 winners and second overall, BMC MTB Racing, Pauline Ferrand-Prevot and Robin de Groot. In the orange leaders jerseys, 91 Songo Specialized, Hayley Batten and Sofia Gomez-Villafan are eager to extend their 6 minute and 26 second lead. The gun goes and the women leave the Greyton area for the first time. The conditions are perfect with light cloud cover and cooler temperatures. It threatens to be a sizzling race. In the women's category, we have a bolt from the blue with Hayley Preen and Marie Rabi from Team Private Client Holdings taking the lead. They are currently in 5th overall, and at the 33-kilometre time check, they have a 50-second lead over Liv Racing, 91 Songo Specialized and Faces Roller. They struggle to keep the pace on their own, and by the 60-kilometre mark, they're joined by Faces Roller and 91 Songo Specialized. BMC and Zimtech ZA followed by 1 and 2 minutes respectively. By 86 kilometres, Robin de Groot from BMC feels the days of racing, and her teammate Pauline Ferrand-Prevot has to drop back and regroup. The gap grows, and their second place in the overall starts to slip away. The 101 kilometres boiled down to a positioning game at the head of the race, with the All-African team of Faces Roller and 91 Songo Specialized. Faces know the tracks well and take to the front with precision timing. It's a sprint finish, and Specialized just can't make up the gap. They cross the line just 2 seconds behind. Private Client Holdings are the surprise of the day, crossing the line in third. The women's teams on the podium are all smiles. Private Client Holdings in third, 91 Songo Specialized in second, and Team Faces Roller celebrate their first stage win this epic. It's 2 out of 3 for the home nation on stage 3. The orange leaders jerseys stay with Hayley Batten and Sofia Gomez-Villafan from Team 91 Songo Specialized.
I look back as we now look a little bit back and then forward, because these are the full route. This is where we are on stage number 4, and the loop around Greyton. Then they go to Stellenbosch, another loop around Stellenbosch, and then the grand finale, the 68 kilometers from Stellenbosch to Val de Vie, which is where we're talking to you from here at Paarl, and this will be the finish of the event. So halfway stage, it might look on paper at 82 kilometers, 1650 meters of climbing in comparison to the rest of the stages, a somewhat less demanding stage, but again, it's all relative because they've got those days in their legs. This is what it looks like today as they head around in a clockwise direction towards Genadendal and then Greyton up into those beautiful trails around Greyton, Neil.
Well, we're excited to see exactly what happens with the field. We've seen some action already earlier on in the stage, and all eyes on Bakenskop, where we expect the field to split up even more. That could be a decisive point in the race, and if not, and that of course is at the 42 kilometer mark, we definitely expect to see fireworks on the UFO climb. Not a particularly challenging piece of the terrain, but a climb like this, it's really going to separate the field, because just a little, if not, there's going to be some tactics going on in that climb, because the descent is very tricky, and the teams who are really on the pace will be able to put pressure on the others and create a gap so that the chasers will take some risks on that descent off the UFO climb.
Climbing at the back end of today's stage, Janneke, so wise to keep something in store.
It's always wise to keep something in store for the latter half of the race. It will be exciting to see how this unfolds. I'm sure a lot of the riders are happy about a relatively easier, well, on paper, a little bit of an easier stage, and maybe it will make for more tight and intense racing.
Well, as we know, the terrain dictates how tough things are, and we know that Greyton is yesterday and today will determine it really is harsh, rough, loose terrain. So it will take some conquering today. 82 kilometers, 1650 meters of climbing. The overall leaders are Canyon Northway by 4 minutes and 42 seconds over Speed Company Racing, and then Beers and Blevins back in the picture at 6:52 down, Baking and DS at 9:05, and Schurter and Foster at 14.5 minutes. It's been a yo-yo race for them.
Well, that top 4 that we see there, we would say that those teams are very much in contention, and we can never discount the firepower of Schurter and Foster. Questions over how Foster is coping with the pace of the race, and we'll see how it unfolds today, but certainly Egger and Baum are on the move. There was a big shift. There's been shifts, in fact, all week in the general classification, except for the Imperius, Seewald and Stozek. But of course, they have yet to have a bad day.
Stage wins for Canyon Northwave, Speed Company Racing, Toyota 91 Specialized, and Scott Stram. 4 different stage winners in the women's general classification. Lil and Strasser's stage win yesterday. They're now in second place, 10 minutes adrift. Ferrand Prévost and De Groot 12:19. But the race is still very much on, with plenty of days to race, and things can happen here.
It's still quite an open race. The only team that so far kind of separated themselves a little bit from the rest is actually the leading team with Sophia and Haley in first place. They have had a relatively constant high level, whereas the others had like either really good days or really bad days, and that cost them some time on the overall, and that's why we see Baden and Villafran here stable at the front.
Yep, they've been solid and consistent all the way through the 91 Songo Specialized team, hence their 10-minute lead. Lil Strauss, the Absa African Jersey leaders. Rabi and Prina had a great day yesterday, but they're 44 minutes down in 5th place. So, down at the start at Elandskloof, there was a bit of rain last night, and I don't think it's made a huge impact on the terrain, but let's hear from some of the race contenders today with Jazz Krushka.
Lars Foster, Scott Stram. Tough day yesterday.
Yeah, it was a tough day.
Just too much effort in the first few days?
Well, I don't know. Felt good first days, and yeah, it can happen. Yesterday the legs weren't just pedaling anymore, and like I said, tough day.
And today it's slightly shorter stage, it's nice and cool. How's the feeling this morning?
Same as always. Yeah, it's early wake up, and we'll see how the legs are pedaling, and hopefully some good trails today.
And with the short stage being slightly shorter, do you think some of the other teams down the GC, some of the smaller teams might go off the front?
It's always when the stage is shorter, the ride's getting harder. So we'll see.
Hopefully have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks. 5 minutes before the start, what's going through your mind right now?
Not much. I think we're excited for, I think it's 82K today. We're going to be under 4 hours and under 300 TSS. So it's going to be hard, but nothing like it's been the past few days. And yeah, I'm excited for the single track that we're going to have on tap.
And good tactical racing up front there with all the other women yesterday?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were really smart yesterday and you can make a plan in advance, but at the end of the day, you really need to make sure you're watching the riders and really in tune with how the race is playing out. And I think we saw something happen and we took advantage of it and just went for it, and we're able to work with some other women to extend our lead. So at the end of the day, I'm really happy with how we're just watching the race and taking our moments when it counts.
We're looking forward to watching the racing today. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Exaro leaders jersey, how does it feel? You raced your way into that in spectacular fashion?
Yeah, it was quite an awesome day yesterday. It was pretty flat and quite fast. We stick with the front bunch from the first 60Ks, then we couldn't go anymore. Yeah.
And today's slightly shorter stage and it's a bit cooler. How do you go into today with the rest of the week ahead?
Well, the weather is quite in our favor, so we are looking forward to save the energy for tomorrow because we have a long day tomorrow. So today, just reserve and go with the other guys.
And no mechanical so far? Everything going well with the bikes?
Yesterday is just the chain snap, so I think so far we are maintaining our bikes nicely.
So to have to fix a chain and then still continue gives you a lot of motivation and confidence going forward?
Yeah, it gives us a lot of motivation because we are ready for anything.
Hopefully you guys have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Some of the protagonists, some of the contenders today going into the day 5, stage 4 of the Absa Cape Epic, and this is the start from Greyton. They head away. They've got one more start at Greyton tomorrow, so this is a loop around this beautiful part of the Overberg here in the beautiful Western Cape. Early start, and it seems a long while ago that the intense heat of days 1 and 2 in the Helderberg Basin. This is much cooler conditions for them today.
Well, we can see the route data at the start of the week. It looks like a challenging. It's a challenging race for sure. Just if you look at the amount of climbing that the riders have to overcome, and of course the distances and the terrain, and just an extra factor with the ride that the riders have to cope with is, of course, the weather conditions and the heat. First major stage, the stage 1, we saw really high temperatures up to 30, and sometimes on some of the head units of the computers we saw up to 40 degrees on recorded. And of course the day 2, stage 2, we had a lot of wind, and another factor, it almost looked really tame. In fact, the racing looked really slow, but we didn't see from the cameras was the block headwind on a significant portion of the race, which of course tires out the riders and plays a big role in certainly the time and the fatigue going into the following stages.
Early phases this morning. Christian Heineck, who is a former winner here, of course, back in 2014. He's racing in support of Canyon Northwave, the race leaders. On the front, they're driving a fearsome pace as they try and thin out that lead group for the yellow jerseys. Meanwhile, the women all together early on.
Still all together, and here we are back with the Scots Ram team, and we can see that Nino has to stop and just make sure that Lars is with him. So clearly some signs of heavy fatigue from Lars. And back to the women's racing, we see here Ariane at the front, and here we're back with the men's racing.
It's all action, yeah.
Yeah, both having issues. I think they have to fix a flat tire here. And remember, they don't really have the backup support.
Absolutely, so losing time there. This soon was a group that split off the front as we go back with the women. Pauline, Ferrand and Prévost. Well, they've had a bit of a seesaw Absa Cape Epic, haven't they?
Yeah, this is Pauline's first time at the race. And clearly she was feeling good at the beginning, and then she really had to pay for it. Back to Nina Schürrle, just enjoying the trails. And it's good spirits, but his partner Lars is not having the best day.
That sort of gesture from Nino suggests that today's going to be a fun day for them, as I think he's going to have to nurse Nino at least a last force today. Swing through beautiful Genadendal, the oldest mission station in South Africa, and head off. This is a chase group that was Scott Calabandina and Santa Cruz, and that is the leading group and the leading team, and Speed Company Racing have gone off the front again.
Well, it's a bit of a deja vu from yesterday. We saw Speed Company Racing absolutely on the pace, and when we watched them in the prologue, they were a big surprise for us in the prologue, and they were interviewed afterwards, and they said they're not here to take part, they are here to take over, and they're absolutely living up to that promise. Yesterday was evidence of that, and today we see them on the front with what looks like almost a 30-second gap already on the field, and of course this puts massive pressure on the rest of the riders. The yellow jersey holders of Canyon Northwave will look very carefully at what that gap is doing, and although they still have a comfortable lead of 4 minutes and 42 on overall GC, they will not want Speed Company Racing to get too far up the trails. And pressure on them, of course. If there are any mechanicals, they will need to keep that buffer in check, because any time lost could really make them suffer later on.
Well, there we go. They're up the road. Then it's Chris Blevins is setting a blistering pace with the South African marathon champion Matt Beers in his wake there. And there are Georg Egger and Lucas Baum. And it's a remarkable story at this year's Absa Cape Epic. This pair, the Germans, they've come here and brought terrific aggression and determination to perform. The splits at 38 kilometers had Speed Company Racing with that 36-second lead. Nothing much between Canyon Northwave and Toyota 91 Specialized. Their second team, that of Tristan Norkier and Cameron Mason, were having their best day thus far in fourth place. Buff Mega Mo starting to lose a bit of contact there, and Scott Calabandida had terrible trouble yesterday. They dropped way out of contention, but back in here they had broken chain yesterday. Santa Cruz, Bulls, with that puncture, Trekvord, well, better day for them at the moment, and William Pirelli, and that is the top 10, all 2 minutes back. So the interesting thing here is that the yellow jerseys will be concerned with Speed Company Racing, and also with the firepower contained in the Toyota 91 Specialized team, who will also be a threat. They're only 6 minutes and 52 down.
Well, Toyota 91 Specialized will certainly have an agenda of the day. They'll look to keep Speed Company Racing in check. If they can't get to the top step of the podium, they'll certainly look for the second step. And Speed Company Racing seem to be really running away with it today. It remains to be seen whether or not they have the endurance to be able to make it to the end. But let's remember that today is only an 82-kilometer stage with 1,650 meters of climbing. So, of course, the time will be taken at the end of the stage, and any time that Speed Company Racing can take will benefit them in their campaign to getting on that top step of the podium when the race reaches Val de Vie after the final stage.
Bit of rain around today. Yellow jerseys here in third place, 4 minutes 42, but when you're on the bike, it must feel like about 20 seconds.
Yeah, especially when you have a team like Speed Racing Company going this well. I mean, they're not holding back at all, and now we are into the terrain with all the single track, and it's much harder to actually keep track on where are they, how big a gap are they capable of pulling out on us. The thing is, when you're out there, it's difficult to know exactly where the other teams are if you don't have them within vision. Sometimes you can get some splits from your support team spectators on the course, but you can't always rely on that. So really, you have to try to stay as close to the front as possible, because you don't really know.
And as calm as possible.
That too. But these are experienced riders, so I think that's no problem for them. And still here, they can just have a little glance down the hill, and they will see, okay, there they are. They're actually not that far away.
And we've seen, this pair, the Speed Company Racing, have had a puncture. They had that on stage 1, which they sorted out pretty quickly, but they do not have a support team. The Canyon Northwave team, well, they have a slightly different thing going on, because at the back of this group, and this is that lead group, is Christian Heineck riding on his own at the moment. Matthias Ullmann, his partner, we believe broke a couple of ribs a couple of days ago. He did start today, so he may well be riding, but off the back of this group. And so the Toyota 91 Specialized second team, they're ahead here. They are in really good position to help Matt Beers and his partner Chris Blevins, should they need it.
Well, that all-important backup team is really a major factor in the race. And we saw the Bulls earlier, they don't have a backup team. Normally they always have a backup team. In fact, this is the first time the Bulls have arrived without a backup team, probably in about a decade or so. And the riders, because anything can happen out on the trails, the teams do often bring backup teams. And we talked about the fact that Heineck is now alone. It's clear that he's left his partner behind wherever his partner is right now. Does know innately, of course, because of the race rules, that he's not permitted to leave more than a 2-minute gap. But this could be a tactical move, completely well within the rules, if he's prepared to take that 1-hour time penalty. But let's see exactly what the gap is from them to their essentially their team leaders. Because if there are any issues with the team leaders, with the guys who are in general classification in contention, be very important to know that help is on hand as quickly as possible if they do have a flat.
It seems Blevins is driving quite a pace here, and that gap just looks as though it's coming down to the leaders.
It's really hard to judge in this kind of terrain whether the gap is growing or not, but it looks from our point of view that it's kind of stable. It has stabilized. And we were back with the women's teams, and we can see here that the rain is starting to coming down. And yeah, we'll see. I don't think it makes too much of an impact. Well, that depends on if it's a constant rain or it'll be just a shower. It has been like very dusty in the last long time here. So a little bit of rain could actually make the trails just a little bit better. But you can see here on the wide open fire roads, it actually creates a lot of mud and a lot of and stuff like this actually easily goes into your chain, into your braking pads, and you need to just be a little bit careful with your equipment.
They're not far behind Private Client Holdings. We didn't see in that last shot, we saw 91 Songo Specialized and Faces Roller together. No sign of BMC MTB racing at that stage. And this is Marie Ravi and Hayley Preen. So this is a 4-rider, 2-team group up ahead. Mariska Strauss at the back here. She and Candice Lill won yesterday's stage, their first as a team. And they have individually won stages before, but that was a fantastic performance by them, finally getting the stage win they've been seeking for so long. But as far as we can work, no, maybe there is a team there. I can't quite work out if BMC are in this group. Yes, I think they are.
Well, a significant thing that we've seen Private Client Holdings drop off the back at that 38-kilometer mark. We did see the time checks, and we are careful to note that the Bakenskop climb, the Bakenskop section is still to come. It's a very steep climb, and then a hyper-exposed section of the route as they navigate their way down. So a major obstacle of the race still to come for the women's teams, and the major contenders are emerging, and looks like the big losers of the day again are the Simtech team, Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield. They've already lost over a minute and a half, and looks like it's turning into a race between the top 3 teams: BMC, MTB Racing, 91 Songo Specialized, and Faces Roller.
So this is, no BMC, just to correct there, they aren't in this group. So this is just the 91 Songo Specialized as well as Faces Roller.
And what we saw was a little bit the same scenario like yesterday. The Faces Roller team and the Specialized team together at the front. And I'm sure that the Specialized team, they are a little bit more clever, knowing that, okay, the all South African team, they know the terrain quite well. We need to not let them get a gap because they know exactly when to execute their plan. We need to watch them carefully.
This is Preen and Ravi. You saw a glimpse there of Speed Company Racing, and this is Beers now on the front doing the driving for the Toyota 91 Specialized team as they pursue Gerwega and Lucas Baum. who are again on the run. The German pair for Speed Company Racing. Sensational dynamic they're bringing to the event, having sprung up as the surprise team in the prologue by finishing second there, and they followed that up with a superb stage win in stage 3 yesterday. And here they go again, winding it up on the front and bringing the fight to the established Absa Cape Epic riders, albeit that Matt Beers is the only one of the combination behind who has ridden the race before. He's the defending champion, winning last year with Jordan Saru for the same trade team. So that gap is seemingly shrinking now.
It is seemingly shrinking, but notably that the Matt Beers and Christopher Blevins have left a gap. They have left the Canyon Northwave team, the yellow jerseys, behind, and that could be significant in the race, and it maybe is a bad sign for the Canyon Northwave team. It could be that we don't know exactly what the state of the team is in right now and what their mindset is, but they could be just letting the break go and using their buffer just so they can ride within themselves and not go too deep into the red. They know that it's still a long way to go, 4 down and 4 stages to go still. And of course, there is that UFO climb that they will have their eyes on. They will have seen it on their profiles. The riders usually put the profile stickers on their bikes, so they will be well aware of exactly how far they are in the race, and they'll be able to see the obstacles still to come. We are approaching the 57-kilometer mark. That's Barry Sahasi before they climb up to the UFO climb at the 64-kilometer mark. We'll get time checks at those 2 points, and the hydration point at the top will be an all-important stage. It looks very, very much like the Matt Beers has put down some huge power, and he's looking to get up to the Speed Company Racing team. This could be an important moment in the race if Speed Company Racing can cooperate with Matthew Beers and Christopher Blevins. That puts the Canyon Northwave team, the leaders, the race leaders on general classification. That'll put them under huge pressure if they can cooperate, because it looks like Canyon Northwave team are isolated out on the trails.
This is a perfect situation to be in for the Matt Beers and Chris Blevins, because they have a speed racing company just ahead of them, and they can constantly see them. And when you can see the team in front of you, it makes all the difference. It makes the chasing so much easier, and you can see how Matt is eager to get up there and get on their wheel.
Some incredible camera work there from the helicopter, being able to give us a really good idea of what the gaps are. And this is really, if we look at what's going on in the race, certainly on general classification and even on the stage, we get a clear view of exactly how things are lying. And the big losers of the day, we can see Buff Megamo. They had a difficult early part of the race. They were over a minute down on that last time check that we went through at the 38-kilometer mark, and they are riding alone and chasing hard after the top 3 teams. They are lying 4th overall. Let's try and see if we can get some word from Stefan Sam on the e-bike.
Stefan, can you hear us out there?
Harold.
Hello, Stefan. So, yeah,
hey.
Tell us what's going on. How far are you in, firstly? Do you know?
Quickly need to check.
Okay, don't worry about that. 56, okay, cool.
56 kilometers.
All right, and Buff Megamo here are just behind the race leaders, the yellow jerseys, that's right?
Yes, exactly. If I'm right, they're in P4.
I think we have unfortunately lost Stefan there. Yes, we believe they are in 4th place, chasing the yellow jerseys, trying to recoup some of the time they've lost yesterday. A tough day for Becking and Diaz, but Diaz on the front here looking very composed, and Becking just matching him as they sit in 4th place. Again, the gap probably 30 seconds to 40 seconds from the yellow jerseys, because we saw them go up that climb just after maybe a minute, so they're managing that quite well.
Well, they're lying in 4th spot overall in general classification, and they are 9 minutes back. And yesterday they had a really bad day. They lost 7 minutes yesterday. They had mechanical, and of course we talked earlier about the backup team. They have a backup team in the race. They got some really significant assistance yesterday, and 7 minutes may seem like a lot, but it could have been so much more, and they could be way out of contention by now. Buff Megamo still have all to play for, and that 3rd spot on the podium. They may not be looking directly at winning the race overall because of that 9-minute deficit, but of course they will be looking very closely at a podium spot at the end of the week when we reach Val de Vie.
And we can see here the Speed Racing Company. This is again a stage that suits them quite well. Yesterday was a little bit similar, not all too long and with a lot of single track. And today is, I think today suits them even better. A little bit shorter and a lot of single track. And you can see it, they're really gaining on that type of terrain. And they look to be going quite good right now at the moment.
And also the look and control. It's always a good sign when you see the riders eating and drinking. It means that they have they have the presence of mind to keep refueling. It's always a bad sign when you see the riders not eating and not drinking and they're under pressure, but they are in command of the race. It's always a great position to be in when you're on the front and when you have a gap. But they will be looking back, and we did see on the climb earlier on that Matthew Beers was on the front and was very close to closing that gap. But let's see if we can get a glimpse back to see what the status is of the race. And he says we're now back with the yellow jersey wearers of Seerwald and Martin Stozek. And under a bit of pressure today. They're about a minute or so back, perhaps a little bit less, but they know exactly what they've got to do. They've got to stay in touch with the very fast-charging Speed Company Racing and, of course, 91 Songo Specialized, who will look to link up with Speed Company Racing to form an alliance and put Canyon Northwave under more pressure.
Just an illustration of the weather here. We saw a short while ago the women racing a little further back in pouring rain, and here it is dusty and dry. So, and that's not far away. So, very, very scattered showers around the Overberg at the moment, and it may well be that they'll come back into the rain or ride back as they head around to Elandskloof. But this is a real dynamic happening on the men's race here as the yellow jerseys try and manage that gap to the two teams who are positioned second and third behind them. But they are up the road ahead of them. They cross over now onto the other side of the road, the Genadendal side, if you like. They're on the south bank of the river, and the world champion is doing the work on the front here, the superb German rider Andreas Seerwald. And this is the South African champion, Matt Beers, in his backyard, if you like. He loves this sort of terrain, and he will drive a terrifically hard pace, and it almost looks as though they're closing it, but they're just keeping it there. As a Speed Company Racing, well, how much longer can they go on for? Yesterday they rode for almost 50 kilometers on their own up front, and they are just hammering it out here. Will that gap, will that effort yesterday come back to haunt them today?
Well, it could do, but they're at the stage now in the stage where they need to make a tactical decision. And the question is, do they wait for Matthew Beers and Christopher Blevins to catch them so they can work together, they can cooperate, or would they just keep going and make the Toyota 91 Specialized team really work for it and putting them under pressure? It looks like they're not letting up. They're not going to wait.
They're not waiting, are they?
And also, notably, they won't necessarily know exactly where the yellow jerseys are on the trail.
Not that. And also, we heard yesterday, we were sitting here comfortably watching them, and it looked like they knew the course to perfection, but they said we didn't know anything about the course. So I think it looks like whenever the Speed Racing Company are on the trails, that's their terrain. That's where they are capable of opening up a gap. So maybe they try to just keep the pace high and hoping for a trail coming up. But it does look like that on this very open, exposed, flat, maybe slightly climby terrain, that Matt Beers is just a few seconds away from their back wheel. And actually, the gap is coming down.
And a fantastic snapshot of the race so far. We saw the chasing team. That would be the team under pressure, are the team in yellow, and that's Canyon Northwave looking to close that gap back to Toyota 91 Specialized and the team out front, Speed Company Racing. Looks like it's very close to the catch right now. You see Matt Beers putting down some huge power just to get that gap closed, and it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens when the two teams join up, because if they form an alliance on these open roads, when it's possible to cooperate, when it's possible to use each other's slipstream on these open roads. It's difficult when you're out on the trails to use that cooperative effect. Of course, we're just now witnessing the catch, and that break out front of Speed Company Racing is neutralized, but they still have all to play for, all to gain from cooperating and putting Toyota and putting Canyon Northwave under pressure.
This could be also a good moment for the Canyon Northwave team, because now these two leading teams are together, and whoever goes to the front will provide some shelter for the team behind them, because they can draft on their wheels. So we will see if it means that the pace will just slow down a little bit, waiting for someone to take initiative to be in the front, or will these two teams form an alliance and actually work together and open up the gap to Canyon Northwave even more. We'll have to see that. So far it looks like Speed Racing Company is not too worried about the company. They just keep on hammering away at the front.
Barker, the UFO climb is going to be fascinating, because that's coming up very, very shortly. They've got about 32 kilometers to go, and in between the finish and where they are now is the big UFO climb. It's not a technical climb, but it's a good solid drag up to the top of the climb, which will be at 64 kilometers, the top of that, and then they'll have 18 kilometers to the finish of predominantly down, undulating down, and then a slight drag up to the finish at Elandskloof. So Blevins sitting up here, they'll come in now. They know there's a hydration stop to come. Well, we saw yesterday some interesting tactics from Speed Company Racing, who decided not to stop at one of their water points. There is Baum's father, their only support member in the team, Speed Company Racing. So they are really doing it the hard way here. A bottle apiece. Didn't catch the eye whether Toyota 91 Specialized picked up bottles. I'm sure they did, and they go straight through the hydration point. So at the moment, 2 hours and 15 minutes through 57 kilometers, and Canyon Northwave 33 seconds back as they come through now at Barisasi. So half a minute, you feel it'll all come back up the climb now. Disposing of his hydration pack is Martin Stosek. Picks up one bottle, disposes an old one, and Seerveld does likewise. So 4 riders on the front, 2 teams, Speed Company Racing and Toyota 91 Specialized. Speed Company Racing continuing to ride on the front.
And to your point, Annika, earlier, you made a very good point in that there is actually a turning point in the race when there is a catch like this, and it can either go 2 ways, and it's a cooperation, or there could be a hesitation. Hesitation if Matthew Beers doesn't pull through and make a turn, because of course Speed Company Racing will not want to take all of the initiative. They will want cooperation. If they see a team that's caught them, they will not want to do all the work at the front. They will expect some help at the front from the Toyota 91 Specialized team, and it looks like Matthew Beers is coming through to offer some cooperation, offer some assistance, and use this great opportunity they have right now of putting some big pressure on the yellow jerseys.
It's quite clear that these two teams have the same agenda, and that is putting the yellow jerseys under big pressure, and that's why they work together nicely. I thought for a second that it was only going to be the Speed Company Racing team still continuing to doing all the work on the front, but you can see that Matt is also taking initiative, so I'm pretty sure there'll be a nice cooperation, and that is not good news for this team, because if the two teams at the front can work together, it means they have formed an alliance, and so the pace won't go down at the front, and so these two guys here will have to work even harder.
Well, let's keep an eye on that body language between these two teams. It seems like Martin Stosek and Andreas Seerveld are swapping turns. They are riding equally, which is a good sign that neither rider is struggling. It seems like they're really just cooperating really well. But let's get some bird's eye view, or not as bird's eye view, really from a trail's eye view from Stefan Sam.
Stefan right there on the back wheel of Andreas Seerveld. What are they looking like there, Stefan?
Yeah, they're actually in sync. Like no weakness to be seen. Probably they have their program, checking the watts, checking the computers, riding consistent. And it also looks like in the front they're not pulling that hard anymore. So I assume they will meet again and run together.
How do you see this?
Not far now.
Yeah, up to the
Oh, probably not. now Matt Pearson in the front.
Yeah, I mean
they were just regrouping after the feed zone.
They've got plenty to gain. Matt Beers and Speed Company Racing up ahead, combining and working together.
They are working together. I think it's from what I see here. I tried to jump back to them later on the uphill, but it was an interesting stage so far. We had so many punctures also around the downhill, with Scott Calabandida also getting a puncture. Super technical riding today.
So that's news from back on the trail. Plenty of others. Do you see a few other punctures? But the Bulls got a puncture today?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
In the first thing, like there were two teams punctured. I think also the athlete.
Well, we can see the 4 riders ahead. Thanks very much, Stefan, out on the trailers. They're heading up towards the UFO climb, and those 4 riders within sight, and that's always a good sign for the yellow jerseys. They can use them as a carrot to pull themselves back in, and we could very soon have 3 teams on the front of this race.
Well, it's 3 teams on the front of this stage, in fact, and we've got 3 teams in contention for that leading spot on the podium overall. And just looking at the time gaps, we need to take a quick look at what is going on behind them. And Buff Megamo they've passed through their time check at the 57-kilometer mark before that the UFO climb begins. And Buff Megamo are 2 minutes back and chasing as hard as they can, but it looks like they've missed the main move of the day. And nice cooperation between Speed Company Racing and Toyota 91 Specialized. If Matthew Beers is to make up the deficit that they lost on the stage 1 when Matt Beers had a really bad day, we can see now there is it looks like there's a bit of a catch about to happen, but I think the long lens is foreshortening the distance between them. It's perhaps a slight illusion that they're that close. It's clear that Matthew Beers and Christoph Levens are going to form some sort of an alliance. They know that this is their best chance of winning, but it all depends on really putting how much pressure they can put on the Canyon Northwave team.
Levens did a lot of work early on. He's hung at the back of this group as they go through, and right behind them, well, not far behind them.
Not at all.
Yellow jerseys are just going to turn into this descent, and they look back to the Speed Company Racing and see that the yellow jerseys are closing on them.
The last time check we got, the gap between these 2 leading teams and the yellow jersey was 33 seconds, and I'm quite sure it has gone smaller. So they are slowly but surely catching up. I'm pretty sure that Speed Company Racing and also Matt and Chris up front, they're hoping for a trail to come up quite soon, because it looks like that's where they really thrive, and maybe they can open up the gap a little bit again. We'll see.
Well, the summit of the UFO climb is at 64 kilometers. They've gone through the Barry Sahisi checkpoint at 57 kilometers. A little bit of a flat section now before it kicks up again for the real climb up to the UFO. So it'll be a long drag of a fairly open road.
Well, just an idea as to how fast these riders are going, how much pressure is going on at the front there. Matthew Beers and, of course, Speed Company Racing. If we look at and evidence of that is if we look back at the time checks, Scott Calabandida, who we're riding alongside with Buff Megamo, they have already lost 5 minutes and 24 seconds at that time check. We can see that it's clear that Buff Megamo, although they have lost 2 minutes, they are still also very much on the pace and charging hard. And just the chaos that's been caused, the mayhem back in the field with the chasing teams of the Bulls, Trek Vouder and Willia Pirelli, Rabenstein and Alleman. They are well over 5 minutes back. In fact, Willia Pirelli are 6 minutes off the pace. And all evidence to the fact that the race is on for the top 4 spots on the podium, with Buff Megamo on the back foot. But very much in contention still are Canyon Northwave, the yellow jerseys. We can see them in the background. On the foreground, Speed Company Racing. And that we see on the front is Lucas Baum and the Canyon Northwave riders. They have the big advantage of being able to see them. It is wide open. They'll look to get in touch with that group as soon as they possibly can, using those corners They know that if they just put a bit of pressure, go as fast through those corners as possible. The big enemy, of course, for them, or the big difficulty is a wide open and flat and straight road where they can see, but it's all about power, and where the teams up front can benefit from the cooperation. These two teams will use those corners just to dive deep and fast as possible into them and close that gap.
Which they're about to do. There was some coordination up front. You saw them going through turns on the front. Beers on the front now, but that gap is shrinking with every pedal stroke that Stosek, and he's on the front here, and Seevold put through. And it'll be very soon that we'll have these three teams all together as they head into the big climb up the UFA. You couldn't ask for a better dynamic as we head into the big, the final big climb of this 82-kilometer stage. The top three on general classification spread by 6 minutes and 52 seconds. Canyon Northwave, Speed Company Racing, and Toyota 91 Specialized all together on stage 5 as we head in towards the UFO climb. It's fantastically set up now.
It's a remarkable race so far, and although it does look like it's been neutralized between these three teams, they are the top three teams on overall general classification. Canyon Northwave, Speed Company Racing, and Toyota 91 Specialized. Massive effort there from Martin Stosek to close that gap. Top three teams now have a 2-minute advantage over Buff Megamo, and if they cooperate well on this section, which they look like they're going to do, it's unlikely that they'll get a lot of help from Canyon Northwave. They'll need to recover from that effort to close that gap. But they will also be very keen on keeping the momentum going so that they could keep the rest of the field on the back foot. And it's all about putting time into their opposition.
But you can see here now that they're all together, it seems like the race has neutralized.
The impetus has come out of it.
It almost came to a standstill at the front. Everybody's taking a little bit of a breather and kind of looking to each other and saying like, hey, okay, who's going to take initiative right now? And it's clearly that with the yellow jerseys in this group, the two other teams can just sit up and say like, hey, you're leading the race, now you have to take initiative.
Speed Company Racing, well, they've been so dynamic. They really have been amazing throughout this week, and they go just they're holding nothing back. Beers and Blevins, just get the feeling Blevins is having to dig really deep today.
Yes, it seems like Matthew Beers is really in his home territory on the flat open roads. He's a larger rider, and with that, with those big levers that he has, those long legs, he is able to put on some huge power. And Blevins has been remarkable throughout the week, and all credit to him. He's certainly matching Beers pedal stroke for pedal stroke. Let's see when the race really starts to steepen up. And Canyon Northwave are still motivated to keep the pressure on, because they know that Buff Megama are big threats overall. And of course, the other big threat overall with Scotsram, they know the firepower of Nino Schurter. Lars Foster has been struggling a little bit through in the stage, but they know that any time they can put on, it's all about making hay. Any time they can put into their rivals, they'll take that advantage.
It looked like Speed Racing Company was trying to force the yellow jerseys to do some work. They went up to the front and put in an effort kind of to encourage or to eager the yellow jerseys to do the work. And it doesn't really seem like the yellow jerseys are having, they're not having too much stress. They're just sitting there like turning the pedals, riding a nice tempo. So I think we will see some fireworks once the climb really starts. Right now it seems like they're sitting looking a little bit to each other. It's becoming a very tactical race.
And interesting, there are 60 kilometers into the 82-kilometer stage, so just around about 20 k's to go, a little over 20 k's to go, and still have to ascend to the highest point in the stage at around about 600 meters in altitude. And they are looking to attack the second steep section of the UFO climb, and to summit with some couple of false flats there just as they start to reach that hydro point at the 64-kilometer mark at the peak. And all eyes on that descent. We'll be watching carefully on that descent exactly how much pressure they will be putting down. It's likely that they'll ride within themselves, and that of course still puts pressure on the Buff Megamo team. They will have to take a few risks to get back in touch with these three leading teams.
But the big advantage that the yellow jersey team here that they have is they seem to have done their homework. so has Matt Beers. So 2 teams in here probably know the course a little bit better than the Speed Racing Company. And we heard yesterday that Speed Racing Company, they're racing amazingly, but they don't have the same insight into the terrain, the specific of each stage. So that could be a huge advantage for the other 2 teams here.
It'll be a huge advantage, and what they'll look to do is look to the others. They'll know very well that Matthew Beers is well at home in these trails, and Canyon Northwave will also have done their homework. And the tactic at play here, if we were in Speed Company racing shoes, we would be watching the others very closely and keeping a close eye on what they're doing and what their tactics are. And it's all about who would get that hole shot into that tricky downhill section.
Absolutely. Well, we've lost our signal briefly from the helicopter as they head towards the UFO climb, and we'll hopefully get back with him there. But 40 minutes ago, the race saw the yellow jerseys under a bit of stress, with Speed Company Racing applying the pressure and opening a gap, and Toyota 91 Specialized chasing them down. But very calm and composed were Andreas Servolt and Martin Stosek, the world champion and the second-ranked marathon racer in the world. Is Stosek, Servolt the champion from last year. The yellow jersey taking precedence over the rainbow-striped world champion's jersey here at the Absa Cape Epic. But he and Stosek have shown amazing composure, not getting at all panicked at all. They just bided their time, and they're back on the front, and it's all neutralized now as they head up the climb. And Lucas Baum on the left-hand side there. His father is their only support during this race, whilst the other 2 teams have fairly significant support crews, from soigneurs to mechanics to masseurs to catering and all the like. And Baum and Egger and Baum's father have been doing all of that themselves.
Well, this is the situation of the race right now. The 3 leading teams, and the 3 leading teams on overall as well as on the stage. And we get a great overview. We're going to be looking in the background on the left-hand side to see where Buff Megamo are. And important to for their campaign, they are looking to get on the podium again. They had a fantastic year last year. They won 3 stages. And today they just weren't quite on the pace. Had a bad day yesterday in terms of mechanicals. They did rely heavily on their backup team, and they were quick to credit them with the assistance that they got from the all-important backup team. But today they seem to be struggling with the pace, and they are definitely on the back foot, over 2 minutes back off these teams here. And with a bit of cooperation, these 3 teams, as long as they don't look at each other and expect each other to do the work, it's going to be really interesting dynamic between these 3 teams as they reach the summit of the UFO climb at the 64-kilometer mark. They are around about 62 kilometers in. We're looking at the lead bikes and the trackers. It's not completely accurate, but they'll be around about 62 Ks and about a couple of kilometers from that summit, the highest point in the race, at around about 600 meters altitude. And the single tracks still to come. They've likely to apply some of their know-how, and the teams that haven't necessarily understood the race. We heard yesterday, talking about that, we heard yesterday that the team Speed Company Racing, they rode blind. They didn't really understand what was to come. They just rode on instinct. But I think today they'll need to apply a little bit more know-how, a little bit more tactical nous to ensure that they can succeed today. We have had stage wins from all of these 3 teams before. It'll be interesting to see. We've had different stage wins from almost every single day. We've had a different stage winner. But if this is the grand selection in the final of the race, interesting to see which of these 3 teams will be looking to win that stage.
It is true that Speed Company Racing don't have the same had the same opportunity to go and scout everything, but now that they're here with the yellow jersey and Matt and Chris, I can tell from experience that when you're in a group like this, even though you don't know the course, you can sense whenever something is coming up, because you can sense your competitors right next to you. Maybe you can see it on the body language, the gearing. They start to gear up, so you can feel, okay, something is happening, something is about to happen. We need to be at the front. So even though they might not, we still don't know that, but they might not have the same detailed insight into the route, they can sense, okay, something is about to happen, and now we need to be at the front.
That will be with the inexperienced teams looking to the experienced teams for guidance and for clues as to what's to come. We heard in remember one of the interviews in 1996 when the not 1996, 2016. Apologies, in 2016 when the Bulls won when Carl Platt won his 5th overall victory, and when he was riding with Urs Huber, the Greek rider, the former world champion Perikles Ilias, was lamenting the fact that sometimes in critical points in the race they would see the Bulls go to the front, and that would be the end. That would be the end of the stage. They would be in exactly the right place at the right time, and they learned very quickly to watch out for the experienced riders, exactly what they do at critical points in the race. Very important factor when you're riding in the Absa Cape Epic, especially as a newbie.
Just to fill you in on some of the teams coming through behind this lead group, Tristan Nokia and Cameron Mason, the Toyota 91 Specialized 2 team, are 5 minutes and 24 down behind this chase group, and they were 6th through that checkpoint. So that illustrates the gap, the yawning gap between this group and the rest of them. There's a race on in the Absa African jersey again today, because Insect Science, Keegan Bonchkoning and Arno de Toy are 8 minutes down on this group, and significantly they are 5 minutes ahead of Marco Hubert and Peter de Toy of Mbuka Taitev, who are in the red jerseys. So it's a ding-dong battle there. Marco Hubert and Peter de Toy have a 9-minute advantage going into today's stage, but that's almost been slashed in half already, so that could see another change, more dynamics and drama in the battle for the Absa African jersey, racing all the way through this incredible event.
Well, talking about dynamics and drama, we really would expect the yellow jerseys to be defending and to be riding defensively. They are really under no obligation to cooperate at the front. They could very easily sit back and say, well, if the other teams want that yellow jersey, they need to make an effort and need to work, and could use that to their tactical advantage. But it's clear that they want to cooperate. They want to put pressure on their rivals, Buff, Megamo, and of course the riders trailing in that field. It's going to be important for them to really just take as much time out of their rivals. And we're talking about rivals. We're talking about the likes of Scott, Calabandida, and Trek Vaude, William Pirelli, and of course the ever big threats always are Scott SRAM.
Well, they are some 13, nearly 14 minutes off the pace here at the moment. Scott SRAM, Nino Schurter and Lars Forster, they went through that checkpoint to the 20th team, and also Santa Cruz 9 minutes down. So those two teams, Scott SRAM in 5th overall, 14 minutes down on GC, and Santa Cruz 6th overall, 15, nearly 16 minutes down on GC. So they're losing big time. And well, Lars Forster, we heard prior to today's stage that he was didn't have a great day yesterday. It was one of those days, and we saw again images today of Nino Schurter actually pulling over and waiting for him. So Lars Forster is clearly not in great shape today.
A team that we're seeing having a good day today, though, even though we haven't seen them much on the screen, is the Trek Vaude with Sascha Weber and Jakob Winter. Today, if you can please just check for me, they're only like 5 minutes something back from the leading teams on the last checkpoint. And that's, I think that's one of the best positions they had so far in this race. So they're having a good day.
Yeah, 5:40 down. They came through just behind the Bulls, who Urs Huber and Simon Schneller had a puncture earlier in the stage, but 5:39 down at that last checkpoint. There's a checkpoint at the top of the UFO climb at 64 kilometers, and it'll be these 6 riders, you feel, who will go to the top of that, because they are all looking very, very composed at the moment on this little flat section before it pitches up again, taking them to the summit of the UFO climb.
But this is a good position for the Canyon Northwave team, because they are the leaders of this race, and now everything is back together at the front. The race is so-called neutralized at the front. They have the race in control. They can sit back and let the others do the work, because they are the ones that they have to be chased down, because they're in yellow. So it's a good position to be in. They have control of the race. They don't know that there's not much longer to go of today's stage. And right now, being in the yellow jersey midway through the entire race, you start counting down the days a little bit, and every day that you can tick off, with where not a lot of damage happened to your lead, is a good day. It's that mindset.
Absolutely. 427 teams finished yesterday. That's an indication perhaps of where they're heading to. That's at the top of the UFO climb.
We can just see on the left there, that is the top, and that is, of course, the time check. And we'll be able to get a very good idea just how close Buff Megamo are, or how far Buff Megamo are. And we've already seen the time checks with Scott Stram, probably the next biggest threat. And of course, we have the benefit of having a look at the time checks. We're sitting in a wonderful studio right now, all air conditioned, but we are not down at the race. And bear in mind that the riders will not get access to these time checks, or certainly accurate time checks. If they do hear time checks from the spectators, they'll try to turn a blind eye or try and ignore them just in case they aren't completely accurate. But they'll get a sense of the fact that they're putting some big time into their rivals, and focus really on keeping the pressure on so they can avoid their rivals catching up, or just basically it's almost a best practice to keep the pressure up if you're in the front like this, to really make sure that the race then narrows down to the 3 teams.
Yeah, eliminate all other variables. It'll be these 3. Just a reminder, at the start of the day, the Canyon Northwave team of Martin Storsek and Andreas Servold, who won stage 1. They had a 4-minute and 42-second lead over Speed Company Racing, who raced themselves into the limelight yesterday by winning stage number 3. They are 4:42 down, and then the winners of the prologue Toyota 91 Specialized, 6 minutes and 52 down on general classification. The other stage winners, of course, Scott Stram Racing, Nino Schurter and his partner Lars Forster. They won stage 2, the big transition stage, but today Forster taking tremendous strain, and they are some 13, nearly 14 minutes off this group.
And suffering hugely from those early punctures. It's not just about the time lost fixing those mechanicals, but it's also the pressure on the rider, especially the so-called weaker rider, and chasing back. Didn't lose huge amounts of time, and admirable, in fact, didn't lose huge amounts of time with those mechanicals, but of course it took its toll clearly on the Swiss rider Forster.
I think we have the masters in the picture right now. Karl Platt, Christoph Sauser, being a long time rivals, now teaming up together for this race.
Yeah, the Songo 91 Epic legends, and they have a fairly comfortable lead of 23 minutes and 22 seconds over Drimel Campos, Martinez and Pirazzoli in the Masters. Yeah, that they, I mean, you would perhaps 6-7 years ago have never ever expected this pair to ride together, but here they are, and having an absolute blast as they swap stories and recount battles past through these trails.
Well, they've certainly been open about the fact that they've been swapping stories, but I wonder how deep those stories really are going, because of course they do both represent 2 completely opposing trade teams, and it might be some stories, but certainly no big secrets traded between the 2 of them.
Now on the descent, the single track descent off the top of the UFO climb over cloudy, those clouds just above these riders, much different conditions to those we've had over the last few days. And again, the Absa Cape Epic just delivering in every sense, different trail conditions and terrain, and of course different weather conditions, as one would expect here. It measures all, this Absa Cape Epic, and you have to be prepared to cope and deal with all these variables if you want to prevail in this event.
Certainly, saying that to prevail, it's important that the riders take careful note of this descent. And we spoke to the course designer before the race, and he cited this section as particularly challenging. 3 out of 3 challenging section, and they'll want to ride it really fast. They'll want to go full gas on this section, and they know they should, to try and take time out of their rivals. But the sensible riders will take just a little bit of extra care on this, no risks, because they know that for every second they could gain by taking risks, they could lose an infinite amount of time if they have a mechanical.
There's a split, yeah, at 64 Ks. Buff Megamo 334 down now in 4th on GC and 4th on the roads. So the hierarchy is settling down midway through the Absa Cape Epic. The cream is rising to the top, and there's a separation as well between third and fourth by 3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes is a lot of time, and no doubt the Toyota 91 Specialized, Speed Company Racing and Canyon Northwave have benefited from that cooperation, and of course the rabbit and the hare syndrome, where they have been able to really put a lot of power down. So that extra impetus. We're back to the women now, and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot seem to be on a good day, and they've had some yo-yo time of it, really. They had a fantastic prologue. Of course, we saw them win the prologue, and a dreadful day. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot saying the lights went out, and stage 1, but came back again in stage 2. So ups and downs of the Absa Cape Epic, and Robin de Groot said it after stage 1 that Pauline got a taste of the epic.
There's a good chance that they're up ahead there. We didn't see them with the Faces Roller and 91 Songo Specialized teams earlier. We were speculating whether they were there, and very much earlier in the day, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot was on the front of the group. So there is a good chance that they may well have targeted today and said, right, let's go.
Yeah, it really looks like she's riding herself into form. Meanwhile, in the men's race, we can now see Matt Beers starting to just, having issues, having trouble here, following the pace of the rest of the group. So clearly, the speed is ramping up. It looks very much like it, and it is at the front, the Canyon Northwave team taking initiative.
Well, it looks like from the profile that the hydro point is at the highest point of the race, but that descent is not completely just all downhill. There are some little peaks and rises as they head down towards the middle class single track section, and the 7th time check we're going to get on the day, and of course heading into Elandskloof again. It's our second loop of Greyton, and important to note that Matt Beers was struggling on that climb, but he'll use this descent and his local knowledge of the trails to get back in touch with this lead group.
And you can rest assured that Canyon Northwave will use any little pitch they can now to just exert a bit of pressure, knowing that Matt Beers just yo-yoed a bit off there, just to keep the pressure on the Toyota 91 Songo Specialized team and to exert their authority, the yellow jerseys, on the race here, Stosek and Sevold.
And it's such an interesting blend attacking this race if you're really a lead contending team, and the blend is how much planning you put into the stage, planning your nutrition, planning your the moves, and understanding where the race could actually be, which key points could influence the race. But also it's about racing on instinct. If you sense another rider is struggling on a certain section, that is the time to go. Not necessarily when you plan to go, it might not be part of the plan, but racing on instinct is also an important part, and in direct contrast with planning ahead. And it's all about how the riders balance those two factors.
I must say, throughout my career as a racer, I always rode solely on instinct. Whenever I was in a race, I never looked down on my computer. I never knew any numbers, never knew anything, because those data, I don't know, I just never used it. For me, it worked very well just racing on instinct. But every rider is different, and for some people it gives them that extra motivation, that extra strength to know all the numbers all the time. But for me, I'm really just raced on instinct.
Listen to your body, get the feel.
Exactly. And now we're back with the women's racing. We saw Faces, Roller, and Specialized team still together here, and actually they're joined again by the private client holding team. So a little bit the same scenario like yesterday. We saw BMC, MTB Racing, not with this group. We think there are ahead of them, but we are not quite sure. We'll need confirmation on that.
Yeah, BMC Racing, they did take the initiative early on, looking to drive the pace. But at the last checkpoint we had at 38 kilometers, there was no real split between them, but they were on the front at that stage at 38 kilometers. But we saw that shot a little while ago of them on their own up the road. So clearly Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot feeling good and deciding that today was an up day and they were going to attack today.
Well, we looked at the landscape of the general classification, and yesterday at the start of the stage it seemed like there was 4 teams very much in contention, perhaps even for the lead of the race. But it seems that Team Simtech ZA, they had a bad day yesterday. Ariane Luti was struggling And it seems that now there are very much 3 teams in the race right now in terms of the general classification. We see 3 teams. We're speculating now. We believe that DMC, MTB Racing are up front, and the two other teams that are with them that are chasing now, 91 Songo Specialized, Faces Roller, and of course Private Client Holdings. They're lying 5th overall and looking to make some inroads. Marie Rabi and Haley Preen had a fantastic day. They were the second placed South Africans on the stage in 3rd spot on the podium, and they'll be looking to make another great day of it today.
Well, you caught a brief glimpse there of the tower, the transmitter at the top of one of the hills there. That is how we bring you these images from some of the most remote regions of South Africa. This is trouble for Mariska Strauss, the Faces Roller team. Now, this is a sidewall cut. In fact, it's on Candice Lill's bike, and they are trying to sort this out. In fact, I thought she was plugging it. In fact, she was applying a CO2 bomb. And this is terrible luck for yesterday's stage winners, second on general classification in the women's race by 10 minutes and 7 seconds. However, BMC 12 minutes and 19 down at just over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 12 seconds behind this pair. So they have everything to gain. Do they? There's a plug in there. I think we can see a plug sticking out the back of Candice Lill's rear wheel, so they are leaking time here, not only air but time. This is a big problem for them.
It is, it really is, but it seems like they kept cool and calm, fixing the issue, just checking the tire there, it feels good, and then up and running again. So they look rather composed, got it fixed, they have the experience, have tried this before, and you can see just on the horizon before we cut back to this picture here, the other teams were actually still within visual contact, and that makes a big difference.
That's the advantage of having wide open trails like this, where you can see far into the distance, and just knowing exactly how much work needs to be done to catch up. But Faces Roller seemed very much in control of that situation. They were calm, collected, repaired the damage. We saw a plug sticking out, and so the plugging is actually, as we all know, is endemic, is part of essentially the tubeless tire setup, where there is sealant running in the tire, and the tube and the rim all form part of a unit, and the sealant inside will plug any of those holes normally. But if there is a large hole, sometimes the sealant doesn't quite catch, and it needs just a bit of extra assistance in that tire plug, much like you have with a car tire. The plug is got sticky. It's sticky on the outside. It's a bit like a worm, shaped like a worm, and just helps close that gap. And the big question is, will they change that wheel when they reach the tech zone?
Well, if now they have a little bit of time before they reach the tech zone, and that will give them some time to feel is the tire, is the plug holding up, is it not losing any air, and if it feels good, actually they should just keep on running, because if it's sealed, then there's nothing to worry about.
And this is how this race has evolved, and the dynamic has changed due to our live coverage of the event, because now their team up at the checkpoint will know they're in distress, they've got a problem, let's prepare, let's at least have it all ready. They know what the story is. But this is the race up front in the men's race, and Canyon Northwave looking to drive it on the front through Martin Storsek. Speed Company Racing keeping it together just behind Storsek. And then it's Sevolt, Blevins and Matt Beers behind there. Just again, look back at some of the other teams chasing as they've come through 64 kilometers. Ravensteiner and Alleman 7 minutes down. Bontekoning and Dutoy 10 minutes down. And they are chasing the red jersey in the Absa African jersey today, and they could well be putting Peter Dutoy and Marco Hubert under all sorts of pressure. So things are changing on the trail all the time. Annika made reference to Trek Voro earlier. Sasha Weber and Jaco Fente enjoying a terrific day today in 7th place, 6:52 down, and just behind Urs Huber and Simon Schneller. Tristan Nokia and Cameron Mason in 5th place, and Buff Megamo in 4th. But they are all quite some distance behind this lead group, and we feel this is where this is where the race will be determined today.
What we see here is actually Speed Company Racing positioning themselves quite wisely, so they kind of put themselves in between the two Canyon Northwave riders, which is a good position to be in because they're close to the front. they will not get themselves into trouble, and they will actually put rider number 2 of the Canyon North Wave a little bit under pressure, because as you all know, this is a couples race, and you must race together as a team, since it is the time of the second rider passing the finish line, which is the time that counts.
12 kilometers to go on this stage number 4 of the Absa Cape Epic. Day 5, prologue, and then stages 1, 2, and 3. And Robin de Groot and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot go through the checkpoint and dropping off the hydration pack. And that's clearly an indication that they are feeling in good shape, and they're on their way now.
They're having a good day today. That's quite obvious. You see Pauline just keeps on applying pressure on the front. They're looking good today, and it's interesting to see this team. They either have a very good day or a very bad day. So it seems to be the way they kind of feel throughout this week.
First time they're riding together, of course, a combination that only really sort of solidified in February. We saw there the Masters team, Martinez and his partner were around about them, Pirazzoli. Meanwhile, Stosek takes it through with Egger, then Baum, and Seewald, Blevins and Beers, the leading 3 teams and 6 riders in the race at the moment.
Well, we've talked about it all week, in fact, the marathon specialists, and we don't see it because he's wearing his yellow jersey. Andreas Seewald is the marathon world champion, and he's not on the front right now. In fact, it's his partner Martin Stosek, also a highly accomplished and highly ranked marathon rider. He seems to be the stronger rider of the day, in fact, and we saw how quickly he managed to close that gap on the open section, the gap to make this a three-team race right now. And Stosek is charging on the front, and Andreas Seewald able to keep in touch with Speed Company Racing, and we're hoping that this is for the Toyota 91 Specialized sake. This is not a significant gap, but Matthew Beers was seen on one of the climbs earlier on to be distanced. He's to be staying very much in touch, and he'll use some of the open roads to take some shelter in the draft of the other teams.
If Martin Stosek at the front knows that his partner Andreas Seewald is not feeling as strong as he himself is, it's a good idea here on the single track where overtaking is quite difficult. Right now we are on some more open roads, but just before that, going in front of the speed racing company, because then at the front Stosek is capable. He can manage the pace, the speeding, and kind of feel and look to his partner and feel like, are you still there? And kind of keeping the Speed Company racing pair under control, not letting them go, being in front, kind of being in the way, so to speak, making it difficult for them to go on an attack.
Well, look at this. We're on board with Stefan Sam. We've got Skalk Bunzar, Chopper Pilot, and Mark LaRue shooting from the sky. And we've got these riders absolutely flying down this trail. Really spectacular stuff as they hammer their way towards the finish of this stage.
And this is dangerous. So now, because the road has opened up, it has allowed for the Speed Company Racing to actually pass Stosek at the front. So now, if they're feeling good, Speed Company Racing going into the whatever next single track section that might come, well, that is their moment. Then it's a perfect moment to go on the attack. And clearly, Seewald is not feeling all of these riders here are strong, they are, but it's like maybe tiny signs of a little bit of a weakness from Seewald here.
A little percentage back. Martin Stosek in uncharted territory on the Absa Cape Epic, because it was after stage 3 last year, having won the stage in Tilbach, that he had to abandon due to gastro problems, and sadly he couldn't complete the race. Andreas Seewald continued as a lone leopard, and that certainly has served him well. Look at this now. Seewald is passed by Beers and Blevins. So perhaps, I mean, and again, this is all speculation from a distance, but if you look at that, that's telling.
So it's very telling. Speed Company Racing at the front, applying pressure, really putting the hammer down. Seewald is trying to go with them, but as long as his Stosek is trying to go with them, but as long as his partner drifting off the back here is not capable of following the pace, it's not good. They need to do this as a team.
And Speed Company Racing will take any advantage they can here. They are 4:42 down. There's still plenty of time to pull back. We've got a huge stage tomorrow to Stellenbosch, then the big trails day around Stellenbosch. So they should be taking every opportunity to put time into the Canyon Northway pair. But he sat up there and was having a chat to Martin Stosek.
Clearly, yeah, that was very obvious, and it allows Sevald to come back, rejoin the group. And I'm sure he's delighted with that. But it also shows that now Speed Company Racing, they know that Sevald is struggling a little bit.
That beer has just handed Chris Blevins something, and he might be applying some lube to his chain there. There we go. Yeah, now this is something that you, as a two-person team, you do with a bit of practice, but he's managed to apply it with great skill.
Yeah, obviously in the heat of racing, this is something that would be absolutely necessary to keep the chains lubed. It looks like it's a bit neutralized at the moment. They don't look very keen to chase or keen to really drive hard at the front with 10Ks to go. It's unusual in a finale like this. They may well sense they won't have exact time gaps. They won't have access like we do to the time gaps, but they will sense that Buff, Megamo are under pressure. They'll sense that the gap is very big. They might have had a glance back with the wide open trails, but they might be nowhere to be seen. They know they're getting an advantage, so perhaps the urgency has just come off this chase a little bit, but we see Sevald on the front, perhaps just controlling the pace. We saw a bit of a gap. Not always easy to tell whether or not that gap was caused by Sevald just having a bit of a rest, just shaking his legs out, or if in fact he was under pressure. But it's clear he's on the front, looking to just to keep the pace rolling nicely.
Back with the women's race, and BMC Racing now are setting a cracking pace because Pauline Ferrin-Provo and Robin de Groot 3 minutes and 37 seconds ahead of 91 Songo Specialized. Private Clients holding in third, and the big losers due to that puncture we saw a little bit earlier, Faces Roller 5:45 down. So that is a very significant moment in this race.
Very significant indeed, because we saw Faces Roller yesterday. I think they moved themselves up to second place on the overall, and now it seems like it's BMC MTB Racing having a really good day, and because on the overall it was relatively close between second and third.
It's around about 2 minutes or so
yeah,
between
2 minutes,
second and third. So again, there's going to be another shuffle on the overall GC. Still remaining up front and on top of overall GCs, 91 Songo Specialized, Viafine and Haley Batten. But Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss's second spot overall under threat right now. Virtually they are out of it, and under threat from BMC MTB Racing. Simtech in fourth spot seems to be losing time today, and not a good day for them. Another bad day, in fact. All to play for these top three teams, and all credit to Team Private Client Holdings, and they are on GC 44 minutes back, so not really in contention for a podium spot, but definitely for the stage they look good.
Yeah, they're 3:38 down, and Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield, Simtech ZA going through the 57-kilometer checkpoint, 6:18 down. So they are losing big time, but as you illustrated, they are half an hour ahead of Private Client Holdings. So albeit that Marie Ravi and Haley Prina found their legs in a sensational fashion in the middle of this year's race, they lost a lot of time in the opening couple of days, and are, well, unlikely to make that back unless there are major issues with Simtech ZA. But no problem at all with Pauline Ferrin-Prevost looking very, very strong today in the company of Robin de Groot as they lead the stage.
And you can see she's just constantly looking over her shoulder, making sure that she's not pushing the pace too hard to bring or to put Robin too much into the red. So it seems like they're, well, in comparison to how we saw them riding on the prologue, this is a different scenario. You can see they're starting to develop a much stronger feeling of each other and exactly when who is suffering, and kind of be careful of paying attention to that and just riding nicely together as a team.
Well, that's how the leaderboard stands right now. If they were to stop the race, so 91 Songo Specialized still with a very comfortable buffer of 8:41. BMC MTB Racing now would move into second place ahead of Faces Roller. by just under 4 minutes. Simtek ZA losing time hand over fist now, 19 minutes down, and Private Client Holdings, as I said, enjoying another fantastic day today, because they are sitting in third place on the stage, but quite some way back on GC. Great ride by BMC MTB Racing today.
Well, it would be interesting to see what the tactics would be for 91 Songo Specialized, what they would do in this situation, seeing that their rivals BMC MTB Racing are heading up the road. What sort of tactics would you employ, Annika, at this point if you were Team 91 Songo Specialized?
Well, first of all, having this team up the road, they are well out of sight, and it means it also they don't have the specialized team don't have the same feeling of like how far are they ahead. So they have to continue riding strong, because they could be, if they continue opening up gaps like this every single day, well, they're going to be a threat on the overall. So they cannot let the gap open up too much.
And of course, benefiting from that, if the responsibility of the chase is up to 91 Songo Specialized, with them on the road right now is Private Client Holdings. And they'll benefit from that, looking to get another podium spot today.
Sabine Spitz and Jana Bellamoina winning 3 stages in a row in 2016, right at the tail end of the race, after leaking lots of time on the first few days of the stage, and ending up in second place. So yeah, some teams get stronger and stronger, and they look like they may be doing that, the BMC pair. Now back with the men's race here up the road.
And we can see it's Matt Beers and one of the Canyon, I think it's Sevald, up the road. This is a good position for Speed Company Racing. Maybe the 2 other teams are trying to put them under pressure, but the thing is, this is a team's race. You need to finish a stage as a pair, and so these 2 riders can't let their teammates too far back. It means that Speed Company Racing, they know that, and they can actually sit and benefit off the draft of the 2 other riders down there.
Well, it looks like they're past the 75 kilometer mark. They're possibly 76 kilometers into the race. And there's a time check there, and we're looking back at Buff Megamo, Hans Becking and Jose Diaz. They've lost 4 minutes already on the stage, and that gap is only extending. It doesn't look like it's going to extend too much more with the teams. You can see there's a bit of a neutralization, and that gap is growing. It's a strange move that the riders now, that Beers and Zeewald are making right now. They're expecting one of their teammates to jump across that gap, and all eyes on that little group behind as to which teammate will jump across to close that gap to look at winning the stage. And it's only getting bigger. And, really, what the mindset in those 4 riders we saw back there, what's going on? But there's no doubting this pace here. They are keeping consistently working together and making sure that they can limit their damage today, and still be in contention for the podium when we reach Val de Vie.
Looking back to the men's race at the front, so at the front right now it is Matt Beers. Oh, and somebody is trying to, as an e-bike going across. This is a good scenario for either the Canyon North Wave or the specialized team to try to go across. But the thing is, now Speed Company Racing is actually upping the pace, so neutralizing that opportunity for one team to pull away.
Yeah, they've got onto the front here, Gail Gaga, and he's driving the pace now to shut this down. Chris Blevins is sitting on the wheel there, Martin Stosek, and then Egger's partner, Lucas Baum.
This was the moment of the race for one team to try to get away.
Yeah.
We know that in this group that we see right now, Chris was struggling a little bit on the climb, but Stosek was looking ever so good. So this was a moment that Stosek could have tried to bridge across to the 2 in front of him, because then there would be the whole team of Canyon North Wave together and one lone rider from the specialized team, and then Canyon North Wave could have pulled away. So that it would have been a good opportunity for Stosek here to try to get across, putting them in the lead. But there's a lot of tactical games going on here, and nobody's really doing anything down here.
Well, there is a 2-minute gap rule where the teammates are not allowed to be separated by more than 2 minutes. That's not under threat right now. but it's just what we can say is an interesting tactical game going on here.
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
Blevins
Here we go.
and-
Here we go.
There we go.
Stosek has gone with, he just drifted off the front there, and Blevins noticed him and jumped onto his wheel, and now Speed Company Racing having to just try and shut this down.
Such an interesting combination of the road racing tactics and mountain bike two-person team racing tactics underway right now. And there's a kind of stop-start thing that's going on right now is a bit dangerous for these 4 riders. They need to keep in touch with their leaders, but Speed Company Racing, also interesting that they are able to tolerate this kind of behavior right now. They are together, they're riding completely within the rules, and really the question remains, should they be chasing, should they be keeping the pace high, or should they leave it up to the yellow jersey and the yellow jersey contenders? Matt Beers on the front, just keeping the pace consistently high, and not necessarily putting down huge power, but because they are keeping a consistent pace and the stop-start behavior behind them, that gap is only extending with 5Ks to go.
It is. I feel like Stosek should try and grab the moment. Oh, and here we see Speed Racing Company. Now they're taking initiative, trying to go on on an attack. Chris Blevins, he has a lot of experience from road racing, and you can see he positions himself quite nicely at the back of this group, meaning he constantly have the overview and he can see when the attacks are flying. If you want to make an attack out of this group, you need to make the attack come from behind, so you kind of catch everybody else in this tiny little group on the back foot. So if I was Stosek, I would try to just see if I can go a little bit to the back of the group and then find my momentum, find the right moment, and try to bridge across. That would be ideal. But then again, I don't know how the attacking power, the sprinting power of Stosek is.
You can see here on picture that we have the Buff Megamo team. This only benefits the Megamo team, the Buff Megamo team, the stop-start non-cooperation between the top 3 teams right now. Buff Megamo, they were 4 minutes back at that time check, and with this, the behavior of this group right now, with the stop-start, it's clear that they are losing time with that lack of consistency. The consistent pace is really what wins the day in the end, and Buff Megamo will be making inroads into that hard-earned lead by the top 3 teams right now, so could be counterproductive, this behavior right now in this small chase group.
Actually, right here, Speed Company Racing, they don't have to be at the front and chase, because they know that no matter what, the two riders just behind them will have to catch up with their teammates up the road. So they could sit back and kind of benefit on the drafting in the wheels of the 2 other riders. But it seems like they don't really want to let them go too far up the road. Well, actually, the ones that should be nervous in the group of these 4 riders that we see right now is actually, and here we go, back to the front. Now Matt Beers is taking initiative. So I don't really know what the tactics here are, because where Matt is right now, he can't see his teammate. Literally, they're riding blindly. They don't know how big the gap is getting, and they might risk opening up a gap that's more than 2 minutes.
Well, they might risk that time penalty. That 2-minute gap is looking under threat right now. And yes, indeed, the Speed Company Racing really don't have to chase at all. It is a bit of a bluff. It's a bit of a game of poker that we're seeing right now, and really is up to the teams behind. That would be Toyota 91 Specialized and Canyon Northwave really are obliged to close that gap up to their teammates. Speed Company Racing can sit back. There's roughly a 30-second gap that we're hearing now, which is still well within the 2-minute rule. But still, it's important that Speed Company Racing get an understanding of exactly how the dynamics work. They are keeping the pace a little bit high, but they absolutely are under no obligation. They're riding completely well within the rules, and under threat, of course, Toyota 91 Specialized.
It looked like up the road it was actually, so it was Sevald getting a little bit nervous, like, okay, I cannot open up too big a gap to my teammate, and that's why he might have sit up just a little bit to make sure that he's connected with his partner, and that leaves Matt Beers out on front alone. And well, Matt Beers has to rely on that his partner Chris Blevins has the firepower to go on an attack and maybe try to bridge across, leaving everybody else here. Well, we see them right now So interesting dynamics here. We haven't seen a final play out quite like this in a while.
And Speed Company Racing was blocking the road there, sitting in one on each side of the trail there. And if Blevins or Stosek want to get across to their partners, it's going to take some maneuvering.
Indeed. Especially now here where there's a lot of rocks and loose stuff outside of the two tracks where we see the Speed Company Racing are putting their bikes. So not easy, but it looks like they are trying to block the road, huh?
There we go with Matt Beers up the road. You can just see him disappearing around the corner. There's the yellow jersey. I can tell you what, the race commissaires might be putting a clock on this at some stage quite soon.
Well, we heard in the earphones that it was a 30-second gap, and 30-second gap is, of course, well within those rules, but still, it doesn't bode well for a team that's well, it does bode well, in fact, for a team for the Speed Company Racing guys, because they are riding within the rules, and it looks like they're blocking the road, putting a bit of a dynamic on the stage. As Annika said, we haven't seen this kind of thing happen before, this close to the finish. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And perhaps they're looking with 2Ks to go, they'll be looking carefully at what happens with the sprint. We do know is the second rider in the team to cross the line. That's when the time is taken, and really is between these 4 riders as to who will win the stage.
And once again, it's Speed Company Racing just blocking the road on this narrow trail. Now we come to a point where it opens up, and will we see Chris Blevins or Stosek attacking out of this group and try to bridge across to their partners? So far, nothing has really happened yet, huh?
2 kilometers to go. They're closing in on Elandskloof, and it is still Speed Company Racing sitting on the front of the second group, although it's a sort of a splinter of the second group. We are hearing that it is around 30 seconds, the gap up to the 2 men up the road. Matt Beers right at the front of the race, and then behind him by a couple of seconds is this man, Andreas Sewald. He keeps looking over his shoulder.
But this is actually very good tactics right now. All looks to be in the favor of the Specialized team, because we have seen Chris Blevins in one of these very tight final sprints, and we saw how he has the firepower to really, and also, you know, the skills to navigate around all the other riders. So I think actually right now I put my money on a Specialized team, just because Matt is well ahead, he's well placed up there, and we know that Chris Blevins, he has the skills for one of these tight final sprints.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. So all Chris Blevins has to do is actually to get around these 2 Speed Company Racing riders just in front of him. Ooh, this is keeping me on the
fascinating. Yeah, brilliant stuff.
This is good.
And I would completely agree with Annika. It's certainly Christopher Blevins is the most skilled rider in this group right now, and we've seen the proven tactic in sprint finishes is for the slower sprinters to go up ahead, to break away up ahead, and perhaps this was the tactic all along with 5Ks to go, is to put the so-called slower riders up the road, and leaving it really just for Stosek, who looked very strong in the latter half of the race so far, and Christopher Blevins to fight it out with Speed Company Racing.
And the other fascination is the Speed Company Racing. Really, you can see them looking around, trying to make sure that they're going to make any form of attack by Blevins or Stosek very, very difficult indeed. There's the race finish, the race village, a kilometer away, awaiting the drama of another fascinating stage finish here.
So all these 2 riders that we have in picture right now, Matt and Sewald, they have to just stay ahead of the 4 riders just behind them. And all Chris Blevins has to do is just to get ahead of one of the final riders of the team Speed Company Racing.
Or Martin Stosek. It's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
It can go any way here. It really is fascinating.
Well, we do have to remind ourselves that Christopher Blevins is the world champion short track in the cross country. So he is, we could confidently say he's the fastest sprinter and perhaps the most canny tactician. We've noted from some of the other riders that he has the best overview of the race. He's one of the most intelligent riders in the road racing as well as in mountain biking. He knows exactly how to read a race, and I would have my doubts as to whether Christopher Blevins would really have he would have this under control completely. He knows exactly what he has to do, and with his fantastic overview of racing and of this particular race, he will be highly aware of just what's required of him.
Yeah, the speed company racing has to rely on. Oh, here we
Here
go.
he goes.
Here we go. Here we go. And yeah, this is a strong, strong move. And now, looking ahead, Matt, his partner, will just have to notice, okay, Chris is coming and keeping up the speed. See, this is a good final. And I think this is in the big favor of the Specialized team.
Well, it looks like Christopher Evans absolutely understood exactly what he had to do. Really clever, just sneaking past Speed Company Racing. And that, of course, left Stozek just caught behind as Speed Company Racing accelerated. And all Blevins has to do is just keep it. He made the move at exactly the right time. All he has to do is keep the power down. But Stozek is absolutely hunting him down. It all depends on whether Stozek can put in maximum power to close that gap. Blevins looks behind him. And if Blevins can just keep up this pace, if Blevins can keep Stozek behind him, it'll be the stage win will come from the Toyota 91 Specialized team.
Yes, it's Blevins will go around the corner. He has made the telling move here and has given Toyota 91 Specialized their second stage win at this year's Absa Cape Epic, ahead of Canyon Northwave as Stosek comes through with a smile on his face. He knew he was a beaten man, and the Speed Company Racing in the third place. Chris Blevins and Matt Beers, another stage win, a masterpiece in tactical racing over the last few kilometers, and outsmarting the young German pair who have brought such dynamic racing to the event, and in many ways created this drama today. But it was finished off by the Blevins Beers master stroke to take their second stage win.
Well, they kept us guessing, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, first we were like, what is going on? And then, we realized what the tactics was. It's been a while since we've been seeing like such a tactic like this.
And from so far out, I mean, as we referenced Carl Platt and Stefan Salm's tactics before. We've seen it done by other teams before, but not from 5 kilometers out. And it really worked a treat for the Toyota 91 Specialized team. And Buff Megamo would have benefited from that little tactical cat and mouse game, because they were going full gas, chasing down, closing the gap, and getting closer and closer. So they are in fourth place on GC, and they'll hold that quite comfortably today, but they would have just closed the gap on the stage quite nicely. Jose Diaz and his partner Hans Becking of Buff Megamo. Another solid day for them after a punctual day yesterday. Let's hear from the protagonist today down at the finish with Jazz Kuska. Right, we'll be catching up with Jazz shortly. I think he's waiting to chat to Matt Beers and Chris Blevins. Meanwhile, Hans Becking and Jose Diaz of Buff Megamo are the team closing into the finish here to finish in fourth place on what has been a fascinating day in the Absa Cape Epic. A team has won a stage for the second time, Toyota 91 Specialized, with a crafty piece of tactical teamwork to get themselves their second stage win. And Buff Megamo, well, just taking advantage of that game of cat and mouse by closing the gap as best they possibly can. And Hans Becking and Jose Diaz, another solid day by the Buff Megamo team today as they roll across the line in 2 minutes and 36. So they closed the gap by nearly a minute over the last 10 or so kilometers as those leading three teams were playing their games.
Fascinating final that we observed here. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I cannot recall over the last 10 years or so a finish quite as unusual as that, where two riders from different teams go ahead so early and risk a little and get out of sight of their partners. So it's been yet another little twist in the Absa Cape Epic drama here today. But it hasn't changed much at the top of the general classification leaderboard, because Canyon Northwave finishing in second place there by 2 seconds. They are comfortably in defense of that lead now over Speed Company Racing, and then Toyota 91 Specialized in third place. A lead of around 4 minutes and 44 seconds. Well, it can be confirmed later on, but they are certainly riding a very sensible race, Canyon Northwave here, the yellow jerseys, the marathon specialist Stosek and Seerwold looking at the moment very, very controlled and composed in defense of their yellow jerseys.
Very much in control. They know that they have to be at the front of the race every single day, but also they don't put themselves into too much risk, too much trouble. They have, I can tell you that they have their eyes on the yellow jersey, and I want to keep it still all the way until the finish line on Sunday. And it takes for a solid race and not taking too much risk, but just consistently being steady every single day. I can tell you at this point of the race, you know, you'll start to kind of count down the days instead of counting up the days, and they'll do everything they can to just maintain this solid ride and keep the jerseys all the way to the end.
Beautiful Elandskloof farm of Craig Hawthorne. It's a wonderful venue. Second time we're visiting this venue just outside Greyton. Inside this valley here is really spectacular. So the general classification, as I said, hasn't changed a great deal in terms of the order. Seerwold hasn't changed at all. Seerwold and Stosek leading by 4:48. They've extended that lead by 6 seconds over Eger and Baum, who again contributed handsomely to the drama today. Beers and Blevins winning their second stage of the race in third place, 6 minutes and 50. If Beers is to make a successful defense of his Absa Cape Epic title won 5 months ago, he's going to have to mount something quite extraordinary over the next 3 days, and perhaps see something happen to those teams ahead of him, because at the moment Seerwold and Stosek are looking very, very solid. Becking and Diaz doing a solid job with themselves in fourth place, 11 minutes and 40 seconds back.
And Becking and Diaz really benefited from that cat and mouse tactic that we saw. In fact, they benefit about a minute and a half. We can account for it, having passed that time check at 73 kilometers, 4 minutes back, and at the end of the day, only 2 minutes and 35 seconds back. So, yes, it's all racing on the knife edge, and the tactics and the poker games that we saw up front benefiting the fourth position at Becking and Diaz. But over 11 minutes back off the third spot overall, they could afford a little bit of a buffer. But maybe those games will not be really the order of the day tomorrow. Perhaps Seerwold and Stosek, Eger and Baum, and Beers and Blevins will ride a little bit more consistently and try and keep the Buff Megamo team at bay.
Well, just flashing up on our screen as the Toyota 91 Specialized second team finish. A great day for them, but also for Trekvaarde, Sasha Weber and Jaco Venter, former road race par excellence on the world tour, many grand tours under his belt. Well, they have finished in fifth place today, 6 minutes and 8 seconds down, and rolling across the line in eighth place, Toyota 91 Specialized. Another great day for Tristan Norkie, in fact their best day, and Cameron Mason 6:25 down. So really good performance by teams coming into it. Scott Calabandida, after their disasters yesterday, finishing in sixth place today. The Bulls in seventh. And as I said, Toyota 91 Specialized in eighth place. So Uber and Schneller, they had a puncture. They fixed it fairly briskly. They lost some time, but 6:10 down on the day today. Not much between those teams. In fact, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Just some 18 seconds between them. Some great racing.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the riders are saying down on the field, and we have Jazz with them right now.
Christopher, Nat, what flavor of chess was that?
What flavor of what?
Chess. What flavor of chess did you play there?
Yeah. That was perfectly executed. I wish we could say we talked about that before, but it just kind of happened. Matt rode off with Andres, and then I was kind of licking my lips a little bit. I finally got to go for a sprint because that's kind of my strong suit. So it was perfectly played, and a little bit of luck too.
It was very much a race of two halves, though. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, we just had to make sure that time gap was fine here at the end. But yeah, the race in general, we were both suffering a little bit in the beginning, but then Chris did a monster turn up on the ridgeline there, and we made it back to the speed company guys, and then yeah, we just knew three of us were coming to the line, so what happened was pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Stage winners on stage 4 in Greyton, Matt Beers and Chris Blevins. Yeah, He's a road racer. He did the Tour of Britain last year. He did win a stage of the Tour of Gila in the States in 2018, so he knows what it's about on the road. And, well, Beers has done some work on the road himself in the past, so they are canny operators. Good stage win.
And it just shows why this race is so unique and special. Well, it is in many ways, but one of the things is also that it attracts a lot of different types of riders. You don't have to be like one type of rider to do this race. You can come with whatever strengths you have, and you can, execute and ride the race. So it suits you best, and that's what a final we saw today. I loved it.
Back with the women's race now, and these are the overall race leaders in the orange jerseys, and that is the pair of 91 Songo Specialized, Haley Batten and Sofia Gomez Villafan. Now we're going to ascertain where they are. They are 2 minutes and 35 seconds after 64 Ks behind BMC MTB Racing.
Now they seem to have left Private Client Holdings behind them. They've already gained a minute and a half. They were riding together before this section, before the 64, so that was just before the UFO climb began, and looks like the gradients have allowed the 91 Songo Specialized team to really ply their trade. And looking back, we saw Faces Roller have a puncture. They had to plug the tire. They took a little bit of time to plug it. It wasn't a quick and simple reinflation, and Faces Roller are at 6 minutes back.
Well, out front are BMC MTB, Robin de Groot here in picture, and just ahead of her, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. And Isla Stowe is with them. Isla, they're on a really good day, aren't they?
Yes, they did a break on one of the first climbs, and they've actually just extended the lead.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're breaking up with e-bike communication. Unfortunately, today, Isla keeping an eye, saying that this pair went on one of the very early climbs. So they've been up front for quite some time. Down goes the dropper seat post for Robin de Groot as they head down the single track here.
Yeah, and it's a good tactic. They probably communicated with each other early on in today's stage, saying, hey, we're both feeling good, let's go on the attack. Because clearly this is what we've been seeing from this race. When they are feeling good, they're going for it, and then they are capable of opening up quite a gap. So they are kind of doing that today, and they're doing it brilliantly.
Well, Ferrand-Prévot is a world marathon champion, a former world cross-country champion, and also on but it looks like she just went off the road. Who knows whether she just wanted to let Robin de Groot take the lead, but it's always hard to tell on these trails. There are often obstacles that we don't see. There is dust, and it can be just a small rock that can scupper your chances of essentially finishing a race, because anything can happen. It's really wild. The trails are untamed, and concentration is not maximum 100% all the way down. There is a risk of coming off.
Or it is simply a sign that they're starting to become much more a unit. They have kind of, then by now they know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and I don't know, maybe Pauline sensed that having Robin at the front was good at that point, because we have seen at some of the other stages that when Pauline is at the front, sometimes it's hard for her to kind of keep the gap to her partner down, and having Robin at the front, Pauline will know exactly all the time where Robin is.
Well, they're descending down this section of single track with that the dropper seat post employed. It's now de rigueur on virtually every bike now, the dropper seat post. But when they first came in, the general feeling was for some riders was they were a bit cautious about it. But now it's standard, isn't it?
It's pretty much standard. And once you get used to the feeling of having the dropper seat post, it's hard to not have it anymore. And we also see equipment-wise more and more brands they start to try and integrate actually the dropper seat post as part of the frame. So it's not a separate unit, but it's actually integrated in the frame. So all the stuff is constantly improving and evolving.
And you wonder when you ride with a dropper seat post down a lot of these trails, how you ever managed it without a dropper seat post, isn't
exactly,
it?
That's the feeling I have sometimes. How did I manage without?
Yeah. It's amazing, even if you take a step back and you look at how mountain bikes have evolved, and especially cross-country bikes, there's an effectively trickle-down effect from the gravity end of the sport, from the downhill. We saw suspension forks starting to appear on cross-country bikes, and then, of course, rear suspension, disc brakes, and Drop-off post is in the past has very much been part of the gravity realm, is now well and truly, with the trails getting more and more technical. We've seen in the Absa Cape Epic the trails, the nature of the riding, the nature of the trails. We've got far more single track than we ever had in the past, and especially the technical section, especially the section down here. And the course designer has rated this as a 3 out of 3 in terms of technical, and the challenging nature of the trails demands the very best and just certainly the very latest technical equipment.
Well, it's a hot topic on the road as well at the moment, the drop-a seat post. It was used in winning the first monument of the year during over the weekend by Matej Mohoric in spectacular fashion on the final descent. So, yeah, very much part and parcel of cycling all round. They're not far behind, these two. I mean, we saw Robin de Groot and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot come through this section a minute or two back. So that lead of 2:35 may be starting to shrink a little on Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. This is the leading team, Team BMC MTB, who are riding themselves further up the general classification today.
Yes, and following them, Isla on the e-bike. She's about the 68-kilometer mark right now. And looking at that time check, we've seen Simtech ZA go through. Top spot right now, the top team to go through that time check in 3 hours 20 minutes, BMC mountain bike racing, followed by 91 Songo Specialized at 2:35. Private Client Holdings at 4 minutes and 6 seconds exactly. Faces Roller having had that puncture at 6 minutes 13. And all to play for the BMC mountain bike racing, looking to hunt down yet another stage win. They look to be getting their 3rd stage win of the race, and this is on this stage number 4, day 5 of the Absa Cape Epic.
Past the team there, trail side looked like effecting repairs to a puncture, and just illustration of how rough and loose it is here. If you deviate from what is now has now become a fairly smooth line on the middle of this trail, lots of sharp rocks and pebbles and stones that could create all manner of mayhem for you. But Private Client Holdings, just going back to that, they're having another storming day. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen, no doubt feeding off the confidence gained after yesterday's breakaway, and they didn't win the stage in the end, but finished on the podium, much to their delight, and they are really going very, very well indeed.
Well, they've gone very well, certainly in the climbing section of the race, and they have benefited from the puncture of Faces Roller. They'll just keep a consistent pace, but it's important to note that Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen, they aren't professional mountain bikers per se. Certainly when you compare them to the likes of Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss, who've both been on the World Cup circuit, placing often in the top 20. And they, by their own admittance, Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen aren't as technically adept as some of the other riders out there. On this tricky section downhill, they are likely to lose some time to both the team up ahead, 91 Songo Specialized, and of course Faces Roller, looking to hunt them down. Around about 2 minutes behind at the top of that climb.
Beautiful visuals coming from our Bulls Mini e-bike on the trail here, following Robin de Groot down this sensational trail.
It's always nice to have this treat at the end of a long stage. Well, today was actually not that long, but just that it leaves you with a smile once you get to the finish line, and you can't remember, that last nice descent. Of course, you have to stay focused, but these women look well in control here.
They certainly are. Greyton showing off its wonderful trails in this part of the Overberg, which roughly translated means over the mountains from the sort of Cape Peninsula, if you like, where we were at Helderberg. Then went over the Hottentottsholland Mountains into the area of Elandskloof, and then over the Berg down to the Overberg region, which is where we are now. And Hayley Batten and Sophia Gomez at Villafan, they have been very, very solid in defense of that orange leaders jersey all the way through this race since they took it on stage after stage 1, and they are again looking in a very, very good position at the moment. Second on the stage at the moment. When last we checked, just over 2.5 minutes down. They may be clawing some of that time back right now.
Could well be, and they're riding with an immense maturity, and they are effectively newbies at the Absa Cape Epic. They're certainly not newbies to mountain biking, but they are riding for the most successful trade team in the world right now at the Absa Cape Epic. And we're looking at pretty much a clean run, a straight record of wins in the women's category, 6 wins for the trade team. the Specialized Factory Racing team, and looking to make it 7 out of 7.
Let's look at our drone footage, and this is Marie Raby and Hayley Preen, who on the stage are in 3rd place and are putting in another solid performance by the Private Client Holdings team, as we illustrated earlier. They are a semi-professional, if you like, team in as much as to get to this level you have to do an enormous amount of riding and racing, and in between their work and study commitments, Hayley's still studying towards an engineering degree, they do an enormous amount of racing. Having said that, Marie is a triathlete of the highest international standard, has won an Ironman 70.3 and has been to 2 Olympic Games as a triathlete, and Hayley is an equestrian national champion and a trail run of the highest order. So they are great all-rounders. Let's go to the finish at Elandskloof in Greyton, and the podium presentation for stage number 4 in the men's category. Gael Gega and Lucas Baum continue to put themselves right in the frame here in their very first Absa Cape Epic. Speed Company Racing 3rd place today, following up on their stage win yesterday. The overall leaders, the world champion on the left-hand side, Andreas Servalt, Martin Stosek in 2nd place today. And a 2nd stage win following their win on the prologue for Toyota 91 Specialized. Some great tactical work, not that they'd planned it or talked about it, but it just unfolded into their laps for Chris Blevins, who thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to sprint. Stage win for Blevins and Beers of Toyota 91 Specialized.
Well, the race is certainly taking shape between these 3 teams. We did see the Buff Megamo team chasing back a little bit, just had quite a significant deficit at the second or the last time check, and reducing the damage 2.5 minutes to those 3 teams that we saw on the podium. And the race is still, we wouldn't say completely wide open, but certainly there's still a lot to go, a long way to go, 3 stages to go, and many opportunities for any teams of these 4 teams that we've mentioned, if they have ambitions of the top step of the podium.
Robin de Groot in familiar pose out the saddle. She does employ this style of riding a great deal and to great effect, as she follows the lines and the wheel of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, her teammate ahead, who's constantly just checking on her, making sure she's within a few meters. And the communication, the understanding between these 2 riders has been noticeable how it has improved over the last few days. Obviously it would. Riders and bikes lying trail side there. Meanwhile, back to the podium. Little swap sides. Put the world champion on the right-hand side of the picture. Stosek and Servalt, Canyon Northwave, the overall leaders after 5 days and 4 stages in the Absa Cape Epic. Another solid performance. They did win the first stage, which put them in the yellow jerseys, and from then on they've defended that performance, that hold on the yellow jerseys. Beers rolls across the line, knowing that his man, Chris Blevins, would have outsmarted, outwitted and outsprinted Martin Stosek as a short track specialist and a roadie with a sprinting pedigree. Stosek knew he had no hope of getting past Blevins.
Well, rueful smile from Stosek, and actually a good effort from him. He very nearly got in touch with the world short track cross country champion, but knowing that he perhaps missed an opportunity to win another stage. But they should not be unhappy with that, having defended that overall leaders jersey admirably, and job done for the Canyon Northwave team for sure.
And here we're back with the women's racing. We see Hayley and Sophia navigating these quite tricky trails. They're tricky in the way that there's a lot of rocks, and you hit a lot of the rocks at high speed, and you need to navigate your way through the rocks. The last thing you want at this point of the stage is having to deal with a flat tire, but they look all good so far.
And we've seen as we passed a few with mechanical issues, may well be have been punctures along the way. So, yeah, it's not something you want to have happening to you right now. Isla Stowe flying down this road behind Robin de Groot and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who looks way down the trail there Paulie. And I suppose the one world title she hasn't yet picked up is a downhill. Maybe that'll come later in her career.
Well, she'll certainly be doing some gravity racing. We saw her doing some enduro racing early on in the season, so keeping her skills nice and sharp. And just one of the, of course, we have to remember that one of the titles missing from her palmares is an Absa Cape Epic title. This is her first, and riding with Robin de Groot. Robin de Groot has said this will be her last significant and special moment for these two as they ride together and looking to get another stage win. And if we look at the overall there, we could arguably say they are still in touch. If today they can gain 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes over 91 Songo Specialized, there's still under 10 minutes to play for at the end of the day with 3 stages to go. We could say that anything could happen.
If it was any other team leading other than the 91 Songo Specialized team, I would suggest that they had a shot at it. But as you've illustrated not long ago, the pedigree, the experience, the backup, really, you barring a really major mechanical or serious issue, this pair, Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten, look rock solid.
That's the thing. They look super solid. They don't have like really off days like we see a lot of the other teams have throughout this race. Well, still 3 days to come, so anything can happen. But it looks like they have found a really good rhythm, and they ride very much as a unit. It looks like they have really found a good rhythm. We saw just before with the BMC MTB racing team that Pauline was opening up maybe a little bit too big of a gap. Well, actually a gap that would make it less efficient, because here, now that they're down on the flat parts, well, if Pauline is feeling good, she needs to look after her partner and provide as much draft for her as possible. And if you want to provide that, you need to be very close to each other's wheels. And it's a little bit, they could ride just a tiny bit more efficient. And Pauline here, I think I just saw out of my eye that Pauline was trying to actually signal to Robin, hey, you need to be on my tire, on my wheel, because now it's flat and we need to get to the finish line. Meanwhile, Hayley and Sophia here are riding nicely together.
Oh,
and here we are. And we can see Pauline is clearly feeling good today. And now they are close together, riding as a unit. And we know from here on it's all flat and all wide open roads. And this will be a time for them where they can maybe open up the gap a little bit more. We saw the gap coming down a little bit on the trails. But I'm sure that if they keep on hammering on like this, and riding efficiently together, they can pull out even more time here.
Well, they're both in really good shape now, going superbly well. Robin de Groot, just keep the hydration going. 10 kilometers to go on the stage here, stage 4 of the Absa Cape Epic in Greyton. Cloudy, coolish conditions. We had rain earlier on in the stage, close to Genadendal and Greyton, but out on the trails away towards Elandskloof, it's been bone dry after a bit of a storm overnight here in Greyton. But this is, yeah, I mean, as we first alluded to, Robin de Groot, she says this is her last Absa Cape Epic. I always say a rider, a sports person only retires when the next season or the next event comes along and they don't appear. Then you know that if she says this is the last one, but this is 12 months before the next one. And Anneke Langfield might give her a call and say, come and ride the Absa Cape Epic with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot can happen.
A lot can happen. But if you already before the event says, you say like, okay, this will be my final one, you know, the mindset of getting through this very final one is very much there. And I'm sure she's happy with giving it everything at this event and then saying, okay, you know, I'm happy and this was it. And a little bit now we're back to the specialized team, and we see the same scenario here. Clearly Hayley is feeling good, having a lot of power for this final flattish time trial stretch to the finish line, and working well together, providing a lot of draft for her partner Sophia to get them through to the finish line as fast as possible. They know that BMC is up the road. Maybe they don't know exactly how far up the road they are, so they can't sit up. They need to keep the pressure on to kind of limit the damage as much as they can.
Our cameraman there on the motorbike holding the camera with the one hand, hardest there, just keeping us right in the frame. And up in the helicopter is Zander, and the helicopter doing a great job. And the chopper right on, there we go. And I'm not sure who the pilot of this one is. It is Skalk Bunzaya. What skill?
What skill?
Brilliant, brilliant. We've got the very best pilots and cameramen and bike riders, motorbike riders and mountain bikers in this. We have word from the trail that the gap has shrunk now to 1 minute and 48. So they are closing in, and you do feel that Haley Batten and Sophia Gomez-Villafan, there's that intensity about them. They want another stage win.
They want another stage win. If they can get away with it, yeah, for sure they want another stage win. But you can see here... It's
so do they.
So do they, but it's quite clear that within this team it's Pauline feeling the strongest, and in the other team it's Haley feeling the strongest. So essentially what we're seeing right now is a time trial between Pauline and Haley, who is the strongest and who can get their partners the fastest to the finish line. And both are looking good. Both are looking good and comfortable.
Well, Robin de Groot spent a lot of time running in the last few months, and that conditioning, and she's living in George. Those mountains and trails there are pretty demanding, and she's in great shape coming into this Absa Cape Epic, despite the fact that it wasn't on her playlist coming into the year. So she really has adapted beautifully to riding with Pauline Ferrand-Prévot.
Well, we've talked about the lead-ups to the build-up and what it requires for an athlete to get ready to prepare their bodies and their minds for an event like the Absa Cape Epic. And it's different for every athlete, and not only is it different for every athlete, it's also different for every athlete depending on where they are in their career and where they are in the season. And a rider with the depth of ability and the depth of training and endurance, someone like Robin de Groot, she might be able to afford a little bit of a lack of the real endurance training, and also then that would mean that she benefits from the freshness of her mind, the freshness of her body, so that she can approach this with a little bit more motivation, and that can also is one of the complex things about form. We talk about this nebulous factor of racing called form, and it's really difficult to predict. You can do all the training, do all the right things, and it doesn't always necessarily come together.
No, but it's quite obvious from what we know that Robin, she's very motivated to be here. She's not here because she has to, not because some sponsors are demanding it of her. She's here because this opportunity came along, and she was saying like, "Hey, this opportunity is too good. I cannot let it go. I want to do this." And that's a good position to be in, being here because you want to be here.
This is you've alluded to it. Now I think we're seeing another really interesting final here, because Pauline, as you've said, is feeling really good. You get the feeling Robin is just hanging on for as much as she can here, and the team behind them are riding absolutely hell for leather, closing down that gap all the time. 1:45 was the gap at 73.5 kilometers. So they are hunting another stage win. This pair are hanging in for another stage win, and I think we could come to Elandskloof with a very, very close finish.
Yeah, it could be very tight at 73 kilometers to go. It's still all to play for, and there's a really flat run into the finish as we saw in the men's category, but with Haley Batten and Sophia Fun really putting down the pressure. It's clear they were cooperating really well, and that 1 minute 45 could come down very easily in the next few kilometers.
A little pitch here, and again Pauline all the time just checking out, making sure her partner's in good shape. Let's pop quickly back to the finish, and Jazz Kushka is with the Speed Racing Company pair.
Georg and Lucas, day after a stage win, and you went off the front again early.
Yeah, we tried to do the same. We felt good in the beginning and had a small gap during the race. But Lucas had a little crash, and I think the others reacted a bit earlier today, so it was not so easy for us to get away.
And when a catch like that is made, like when they chase you down, how do you sort of remotivate to go to the finish?
Yeah, I mean, the race is still long, and we got a few more stages to go, so the overall time is also super important for us. Yeah, it was a bit unlucky that we didn't gain some time on the yellow jersey, but it's still okay.
And super interesting tactics at the end there.
Super crazy, yeah. We hoped that the others maybe go too fast in the front, so they got over a 2-minute gap, because we were a bit like in an unlucky position in that moment. And yeah, the other two guys didn't let us go in the back, so we could attack from the back. So it was super
fun to watch, and good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
Georg Egger, yeah, very interesting how they approached today's racing. Well, they brought their first time at Absa Cape Epic, they brought a different dynamic to the event. Meanwhile, Haley Batten and Sophia Gomez Verafan are closing, you feel, well, we know, on the leaders BMC MTB Racing, who are up the road by, when last we checked, 1:45. It may have closed a little to that. Behind them, Private Client Holdings still in third place, 5:23 behind the leaders. Faces Roller clawing back a little. Candace Hill and Mariska Strauss had a puncture, 6 minutes and 40. So they're a minute and 20 odd seconds behind Marie Rabe and Haley Preen.
Well, we're just keeping check on who is doing the lion's share of the work, and Haley Batten has not left the front for a while, leaving her partner to follow the wheel. Clearly feeling the strongest of the day, and we also saw up front with Pauline Ferrand-Prabot taking the lead for a long time. In fact, Robin de Groot, I don't think we've seen her at the front of this pairing. Clear that the stronger of the two is certainly right now is Pauline Ferrand-Prabot.
And that's one of the things that I find the beauty of this race. It's you need to get through it as a team, and you need to develop this feeling within the team of constantly knowing where each other are, and good communication. And essentially, well, when it comes down to the finish line, it's how well you manage to kind of spread out, you know, the combined forces between you. It is what matters. You can be all the strong in the world, but if you don't manage to help your partner throughout the race, you can forget about it. So, yeah, for me, it was always a personal highlight on the calendar, coming mostly from cross-country racing, coming to this event, and you know, I had to like wire my mind a little bit differently for this race, because here it was all about the teamwork and not you racing against everybody else. And for me, it was really like a nice addition to my race calendar.
So coming as it did some time after your last cross-country race at the end of the year and before the World Cup, it wasn't too much. You had time to clear the mind and reset and focus on this event entirely.
Oh yeah, totally. So normally my race calendar would be from April until September, and then after September, in October, November, I would take a good pause, a gap, just to regain motivation and to just reset. And then throughout the European winter, I would put in a lot of training, a lot of base miles. My main focus throughout the winter would be to build a good base, and then having this race in March, it was actually the perfect thing for me to have, because I had this kind of, you know, as one of the first goals. It was a nice motivation for me to go out and do all these hours on the bike that is needed, not only for this race, but for the entire season. So for me, this race always was perfect, both when it comes to time of year and distance, and everything really worked out well for me.
Certainly did. 5 victories, and then thereafter a world title and various other great achievements in terms of World Cup wins. But look at Haley Batten here, my word, she is putting in a huge effort as they chase down the leaders BMC.
And at this point in the race, it's flat, wide open roads, and aerodynamics plays quite a big role even in mountain biking, and even at this section of the race. Haley Batten with her hands a little bit closer than she's got off the grips, and they're in the middle section of the handlebar, just getting into an aero position, and with the arms closer together, it does make a significant difference to the aerodynamics of the frontal area of the rider. Clearly getting to be as an efficient position as possible, but Pauline Ferrand-Prabot still towing really hard, looking to defend that 1 minute 45 lead that they had at the time check. And Sophia Villafana is going to be going absolutely full gas. She'll maybe take a turn at the front just to give Haley Batten a bit of respite. Even if Haley Batten is doing the lion's share of the work, it'll be really good just to give her a little bit of a rest, just to take a turn, and let Haley Batten then recover a little bit and put some power down in the finale. We see a bit of a gap developing here with Robin de Groot just tailing off out of the slipstream. It's important to get the most benefit from the slipstream and the rider in front to be as close as possible, and ideally you almost don't see daylight between the tires. That's the ideal situation, but clearly on this section Robin de Groot not getting the full benefit of the slipstream behind Pauline Ferrand-Prévot.
No, and we have a feeling here, we get confirmation that the gap is shrinking between the first and second team on today's stage, and it makes it even more important that Pauline is constantly, because she's clearly feeling the stronger here. You can see she's kind of pointing on her rear wheel as to indicate to Robin like, hey, you must stay on my wheel. But I have a feeling that if Robin was capable of staying on her wheel,
she would be there.
She would be there. So yeah, it's always difficult if one rider in the team is feeling a little bit too strong in comparison to the other, because it's difficult to really keep the teamwork smooth. But Pauline is feeling good, and she's trying to get Robin to jump on her wheel.
And the concern was Robin looking over her shoulder, which is always a telltale sign that she is not feeling totally 100% right now, and worried that the team was chasing. Let's go to Jazz Kusker at the finish, chatting to the race leaders.
Martin Stosek, Andreas Seewald, very interesting stage today.
Yeah, it was super fast from the beginning, as we expected, because it was a short one, let's say. But I'm happy in these conditions, in the single trails, which were pretty rocky and dangerous. We avoided all the punctures and so on, so that's what makes me happy. And also that we managed the sprint finish to the second place is nice bonus for us, and we didn't lose any time. So another day in the yellow, and that's important. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that sprint finish and the cat and mouse games in the last sort of 5 kilometers. It was very interesting to watch.
Yes, it was like almost funny, but also scary in the same way, because some moments the gap was so big that I could not even see the group behind me anymore. So I was just hoping nothing stupid will happen back there.
And did you and Matt have a conversation there and then sort of ride off the front, or how did it all come about?
Yeah, first we had the conversation of how the rules are, if it's 1 minute or 2 minutes. And then I was pretty sure it's 2 minutes, so that we can go on a little bit. And yeah, and then it was clear that the other guys will decide it. And I'm quite happy how it went.
It was very exciting to watch. Look forward to seeing you some more tomorrow.
Yeah, we look forward also. Thank you.
Canyon Northwave, the leaders in the men's race, and we are now with the women's leaders on the stage. Team BMC MTB passing at a rider in distress there, holding a tube around his waist, as Robin de Groot is hanging on for all she's worth here to Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. It is going to be a thrilling finish here.
Well, you've got the hard-charging Hayley Batten, and perhaps the ailing, you could say, the ailing Robin de Groot as the kilometers count down. It looks like that we were hoping they weren't going to run out of time, but with the kilometers coming down quickly with 2Ks to go, it's still not over, but with around about a minute's gap back to Hayley Batten and Sofia Viafana, it looks like they may just make it.
And what you see here is like clearly Robin is suffering big time, but Pauline is not making life easier for her at all, because if you're like right in the slipstream where you see her right now, you will have to only provide maybe 25% less power to ride the same speed. But if Robin is left 10-15 meters behind, she'll have to produce exactly the same power output as Pauline to keep up with her. So it makes all the difference that you can be right on the wheel, and clearly Robin is struggling to hang in there. And Pauline, being the stronger rider, it actually comes with a little bit of a responsibility to make sure that you get your partner through as easy as possible, and leaving the gap too big is not a good thing.
So this speaks to Pauline's perhaps lack of experience as in a two-person stage race like this, or team race.
Yeah.
You just ride slower and let her ride on your wheel.
Yes.
And when it comes down to it, if they do close in on you, you manage that situation. But this is not looking great for them. And every night she has to ease up, and then Robin catches, and then she goes hard again. Or let Robin go in front.
Yeah, and actually here there's enough room that Pauline could go behind her and even give her a little push, just support her a little bit from behind, just to make sure that the extra energy and power that Pauline clearly has, that is somehow transferred into the hands of Robin and helping her. Right now it's not really helping her all too much. So it's important when you're like now, Robin is nicely on the wheel, and Robin will have to communicate to Pauline constantly, like, yeah, good, or slow down if she can feel that now the gap is opening up again. The communication here is absolutely key to make a smooth teamwork.
1:26, so the gap is closing, but I don't think it's going to close fast enough. They are within the last kilometre, just over a kilometre of the stage. Batten has done an enormous pull on the front of this chase for Sophia Gomez-Villafan and 91 Songo Specialized, but I think they're going to run out of trail as they get close to the finish. I think we saw Thomas Fischneck there. Oh no, that was Lars Forster. Good heavens. That we'll have to revisit at another stage, because that is quite unbelievable. But this is the leaders again. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. She just has. There's that situation where we know they're closing. I've got to get there, but I've got a rider to take with me here.
Ferrand-Prévot still racked by the competitive spirit and desperate to keep the pace up, but also knowing torn between that and looking after her partner Robin de Groot, who's clearly ailing. The chasers, Team 91 Songo Specialists, are running out of road to catch them, and but it looks like Robin de Groot is running out of energy. But it's really close to the stadium right now, where they'll ride through and hopefully save the day still. They won't have a huge advantage over their chasers, 91 Songo Specialized, so they want to get a big gap and make some time on them on the overall. Now is perhaps not the day, but at least they will be satisfied with having won the stage, if all still goes according to plan.
Lars Forster is in, don't worry. That wasn't him they were going past. Slight bit of panic there, but they have finished somewhere down here, and Nino Schurter. Last little dig here for Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. They're closing in on the finish here. A second stage win beckons for the BMC team. It's been hard-earned and hard work over the last 15-20 kilometers for Robin de Groot and for Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. She manages their efforts and tries to ensure that Robin de Groot gets through it close enough to her wheel, and it's all part of learning to ride as a team. As experienced and as brilliant as she is, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, this is one area that perhaps she doesn't have that experience, is riding in a two-person team, and she'll be putting every day down as part of that experience. They're into the finish chute now, and it is secure now for Team BMC, but it's been a nail-biting last 10 kilometers, and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot will take the last turn into the finish chute at Elandskloof in Greyton and put the finishing touches to another stage win. They're back in the hunt. Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. Look at the delight for this pair. What a ride. And they have ridden themselves right back into contention in the race here at the Absa Cape Epic. Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot of Team BMC MTB.
What a performance, and running out of road to catch them. Team 91 Songo Specialized, but they're still out on the trail, and the last time check they're around about minute 25 or so back. Hayley Batten clearly motivated. She has hardly left the front. We saw earlier off camera that Villafan took a couple of turns at the front just to give a little bit of respite to Hayley Batten, just a tiny bit of recovery. But Hayley Batten back on the front, clearly in charge of the pace, setting. That gap has definitely closed, and just a contrast between the two teams, the team that have just finished and the gaps that are developing between Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. These two riders right now that we see in picture are absolutely in sync, clearly managing each other's efforts very well, spreading out the load, and cooperating extremely well between the two of them. And again, a very mature ride from the overall leaders of the race, Team 91 Songo Specialized, Sophia Gomez-Villafan and Hayley Batten. Save the day for another day under the belt in the leaders' jerseys.
Yeah, 1 minute and 12.
So the gap clearly came down towards the end, and I think it was because we saw this team, they were executing the teamwork to perfection. They really managed to transfer a lot of that extra energy, extra power that Hayley had to Sophia, so that Sophia could really benefit from the slipstream and manage to stay in the slipstream, and that is why they carried so much momentum towards the end of the stage.
Let's hear from the stage winners with Jazz.
Robin, Pauline, long, hard effort today.
Yeah, there was a unintentional solo breakaway, but thankfully I had a PFP Express ahead of me and a super motivating partner. I was just thinking while I was out there, world champion person actually, never mind the titles, but she's an amazing person.
What's it like working up front there and trying to stay motivated while you know that they're chasing you down from behind?
Yeah, you know, yesterday we did a mistake and today we didn't want to do the same. So we tried to go early like on the single track, and after that we just have to keep pushing and to be safe on the downhill because it was quite technical and also super rocky. So yeah, after that we just went full gas and yeah, Robin did so good and I'm so proud of her, and like I was on fire today, so I was like yelling to her and I'm so sorry. But yeah, we had to win this race because yeah, we can't win 2 races without 3. So now we had 3 wins, and yeah, it's super cool.
So did you go out targeting this stage? Did you look at it last night, or did you just go on the legs this morning?
You want to be honest? I got told it's a rest day today.
We'll have another rest day tomorrow because it surely worked out really well.
Cool, thanks.
Well, they're clearly enjoying riding together, and if that's a rest day from Team BMC MTB, well, heaven knows. This is Private Client Holdings. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen, another excellent day from this pair as they ride themselves right into the race here. Fantastic to see already in there. Sophia Gomez-Villafan and her partner Hayley Batten, but this is going to be a 3rd place finish again for Private Client Holdings, Rabi and Preen. And the big losers today, Faces Roller. This pair are a long way back on GC, and they are over 40 minutes down on general classification, but they're just getting stronger and stronger as the week goes on.
We saw Faces Roller having a mechanical earlier on, and this is just moments ago we saw Marie Rabi just glancing to her left a few times. Perhaps they are highly aware that Faces Roller are hunting them down for a spot on the podium of today's stage.
Team here going really well. We saw them carrying a lot of momentum yesterday, being out front alone for them a great deal of yesterday's stage, and I'm sure it has really put them turned on or lit the fire in them, and we can see today they're kind of riding with the same fighting spirit, and it is really good to see.
Well, what a performance again by Private Clients Holdings. They're into the finish camp at Elandskloof, across the lake, and they will be on the road to another podium finish in the Absa Cape Epic. They also had, like Canyon Northwave last year, they had a rider finish on their own, Marie Rabi, after Hayley Preen broke her hand in stage 3. And today they are right in the thick of things, redeeming themselves and riding themselves into really the limelight as a South African combination. Faces Roller did have a puncture today, there's no question. They were held back by that. They spent quite a while trying to fix that puncture, but this team were already ahead of them at that stage, so they've ridden themselves into a really good shape here.
Well, it all depends on how that puncture held. We saw the repair going on, but it's not always a guarantee that that puncture does hold. We do see all credit to the team that are coming 3rd. Marie Rabi, her best finish overall at the Absa Cape Epic is 4th. Now currently lying in 5th spot behind Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield. But fantastic day out, having another podium on the stage 4 at the Absa Cape Epic, the 82-kilometer stage, and another day under the belt for them.
Yep, they're on the podium once again, Ravi and Preen. Well done by the private client holdings pair. And they'll be well pleased with that performance. Top 3 yesterday, top 3 today. And standing in the hat there is a rather concerned Darren Lill, husband of Candice and a former Absa African Jersey winner here at the Absa Cape Epic, and a road race of high pedigree over the years. But he's looking after the interests of Candice and Mariska here as faces roller.
Well, we've just seen from the spotter that they're on their way in. Faces roller, Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss. They have saved the day, and they look to keep that 3rd spot on the overall, but they will have lost significant time to Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. They finished the stage 6 minutes 47 seconds off that pace, and their 2nd spot they fall down to 3rd, and yet another shift in the top 4 in the general classification, and just proving to be such a fascinating race in the women's category. See there the results. Ferrand-Prévot and de Groot saving the day. They were running out of time, running out of energy, with Robin de Groot ailing at the back, and Hayley Batten and Gomez Villafana really chasing super hard and gaining almost 30 seconds in the last 8Ks. Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen, another great day out. Another 3rd spot on stage 4. Down 6 minutes back, gaining time on the yet to arrive. Really importantly, the Simtex ZA team, having had a bad day, another bad day today. Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield, and that 4th spot looking a bit under threat at the moment.
Let's now go to the finish and hear from the leaders in the CM.com women's race.
Hayley and Sophia, how close was that?
Oh my gosh, it was so tight. I mean, we were all together and right there, and it's tough because like the guys behind us, they catch up and kind of, you know, mix in with our race a bit. But hey, that's just how it is, and it's part of the obstacles out here in Africa. So, I mean, we just had a small mishap. She got some barbed wire stuck in her bike, so 2 seconds we were off, and you know, we lost 2 minutes. But we fought hard to get back, and at the end of the day, it was like a minute and a half, I think, that we were behind. But of course, it's hard to not be on the top side of the podium and to get a chance to really battle with Pauline and Robin, because they're such a strong team, and I'm kind of looking forward to a good fight one of these days.
And you also had like lots of different weather conditions out there today?
Yeah, that honestly was super nice. Everybody comes to the Cape Epic like, oh, it's going to be hot, it's going to be brutal. It's like, you know, make sure you do your heat adaptation, and turns out you just got to ride in the rain and, yeah, enjoy it. It wasn't as cold as it was last year on the rainy day. Like, it felt really nice, and the trails were awesome. So it's good that the weather changes.
And that UFO climb, how was that?
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, yeah, any single track climb with technical features, you really have to stay so on it, because if you push too hard, you know, you make little mistakes, and when you're with a chain of riders, all of a sudden, you know, you mess up and you have to charge back forward. So it's easy to burn matches, but I think we had a lot of fun today. Like, just having so much single track out there, it's good for us, and I think it's an awesome opportunity to actually explore the terrain out here.
Well, there's a lot more to come. Enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
3 days to go.
They're clearly enjoying themselves out here. Annika, the leaders in the women's race, looking really happy.
Just every single day, a very solid performance by the team. They didn't take the stage win today, but they have their eyes on the orange jersey, and they're looking good because we haven't really seen, you know, this team having an off day that really put them down the rankings. Every single day they are up there, and that will take them far.
They had a few issues today, as you heard Hayley talking about there, but and they really are winners, aren't they? She was disappointed that they weren't able to be involved in the sprint for the finish here. They're chasing the win, and they're looking forward to perhaps an even battle with BMC tomorrow, maybe, as Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot bring their A game perhaps tomorrow again. They didn't have a great day yesterday. As you heard Pauline said, they made a bit of a mistake yesterday that cost them, but today they got it all right to take the win on the stage. So riders rolling into the finish here. These are many of the Masters and men's teams. The Exaro team coming in there. The leaders in the Exaro jerseys, Salala and Indebele in the Exaro Academy 1 team. A very competitive category that is. So Elandskloof looking beautiful it is under the clouds today. It was pretty hot yesterday afternoon and quite humid as it built up towards that evening thunderstorm. And as we saw earlier today, there was intermittent rain out on the route today. It didn't play any real role in the day's racing, but certainly made for a variety of different weather conditions they've had. Let's go down to the finish. It's Jazz talking to the private client holdings pair.
Marie, Haley, another podium.
Yeah, unexpected. We didn't think today with the least amount of climbing we'll podium. Unfortunately, Candace got a puncture on the second descent, so it's never nice to podium due to a technicality. And it could have been a sprint finish for us. But yeah, great. We had such a good day. I think I'm quite impressed of how we rode technically. And we could stay with the girls technically, which is not our strong point. So yeah, very happy and yeah, solid build into the week.
There's also a bit of mud out there and a little bit of rain and then some dry sections.
It was very muddy. A few sections of like thick mud and a lot of river crossings. But I think our bikes will need some TLC after today. Yeah, but it dried up near the end. We even had some rain on us in the beginning, but it was a good day out. Nice change.
And how do you approach a river crossing? I mean, if it's blind, do you sort of follow the rider in front of you or do you just pick your line and go?
Yeah, if it's blind, I like to give a bit of a gap and you can see what the girls are doing. It does slow down a bit, so that makes it tricky because then you have less momentum going into it. But yeah, it's, I guess, watching the riders in front of you and just trying to miss the big boulders.
Well, dodge those boulders tomorrow, enjoy it, and we look forward to seeing you on the podium again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Marie Ravi and Haley Preen after their stage third place finish today for the private client holdings pair. Second day in a row they're on the podium on the stage, but not on the general classification just yet. But the big question is Simtech ZA. Well, they've come into the finish. Ariane Luthi and Amy Wakefield 11 minutes and 44 seconds down on the stage winners BMC MTB Racing.
Definitely not a good day for them. We saw them kind of starting to lose momentum yesterday, and it seems like today, clearly, again, not feeling good. That will see them go down the rankings quite a lot. Let's go back to this morning, where the men started out in cool conditions.
Yes, they headed out from Elandskloof in Greyton and these overcast skies, and the potential for a bit of rain and some tacky surfaces, which would have been quite welcome for these riders after the dusty last couple of days. And immediately the yellow jerseys going to the front. Andrea Servolt and Martin Stosek. Scott Sram were up there as well early on, but things wouldn't go according to plan for them. But for the second day in a row, in fact for the third day in a row, Gail Egger and Lucas Baum putting themselves right at the sharp end of the racing for Speed Company Racing, the newcomers to the Absa Cape Epic. Stage winners yesterday. They were looking to make it another stage win today, perhaps as they went hard and fast early on in these wide open roads.
Yes, and quite a big group leaving town, and still a lot of riders in that group. And we see former winner of the race in 2014, Christian Heineck, on the front, just opening up the taps to try and thin that group out. And the another casualty early on in the race is Scott Sram. We've got the backup team there with them, but clearly an ailing Lars Foster and another ailing point for the Bulls. The rear tire of Urs Huber needing some attention there, and fortunately not too difficult for them to repair. They were back on the pace, but clearly not at the very front where it really counted, and just passing Team DMT, also having mechanicals on the trail, and Nino Schurter just playing for the cameras, perhaps innately knowing that their day might not be quite as good as their stage win, which if we cast our minds back to stage 2 when they won the sprint finish, a big contrast from the way they're feeling today.
And Sergio Menticon Gutierrez and his partner Francesca Carretero, together with the Santa Cruz team there for a while, were in the mix as a chase, but then Georg Eger and Lucas Baum, Speed Company Racing, decided that they were going to launch another solo attack. The yellow jersey Stosik, behind him Sierwold, and as well as 91, these Toyota 91 Specialized were in the mix as well. And from then on, it basically became this pair out front, and slowly but surely the other two teams started hunting them down.
Certainly on the decisive point of the race, the Bakenskop section it lived up to its promise as being the race separator, and showing huge impetus here. The Speed Company Racing really they vowed in the very beginning of the week that they were going to be coming and taking over. They weren't just taking part, they were taking over, and clearly demanding massive efforts from Matthew Beers to chase them down, and also putting the yellow jerseys under pressure to try and close that gap. Speed Company Racing not giving a single moment and not giving any mercy to the teams behind, but also hoping to draw the race out and to draw the likes of Matthew Beers and Chris Blevins into that front chase, to still put the pressure on the yellow jerseys. And once everything was together, Matthew Beers and Chris Blevins knew that there was all to play for, that they could cooperate and try and put even more pressure on those yellow jerseys. They looked back to see the catch was about to happen, but not letting off the pace, making sure that the yellow jerseys did have to work for it. And Martin Stozek doing the grand share of the work to close that gap.
Slowly but surely they started to close the gap, and then they were all together as they went towards the final big climb of the day, the UFO climb, which is not a single track technical climb, a sort of dual track climb, but they were all together then. And then the game of cat and mouse, even as early as then, was starting to unfold, as they knew once they got over the top here, there were not too many opportunities, but all four going over the top of the UFO climb together.
And then we saw things were starting to get tactical. Speed Company Racing once again going to the front, see if they could get rid of the other teams. But there were some tactical moves going on, and here we also see how on the road tactics are being made. And because they're all together now, it seems like the race is kind of neutralized. Chris Blevin just applying some chain loop on Matt's bike. Super important in these conditions with ever-changing wet and dry parts.
This fascinating culmination to the stage with Beers and Sierwold going up the road by some distance, at our estimation just over half a minute ahead of their respective partners in Speed Company Racing, who was sitting on block of the front here, and then Chris Blevins sensing the opportunity, seeing the gap and going past. He's a sprinter par excellence with Beers up the road. All he had to do was to get past the Canyon Northwave rider Martin Stosek, and he would confirm the Toyota 91 Songo Specialized second stage win of the race, which is exactly what happened. Stosek realized he didn't have the firepower to get past Blevins. Celebrations for he and Beers as they pick up the stage when Stosek arrives. Smile, but they will have the overall lead, and Speed Company Racing outwitted and outsprinted by the other two teams to take third place a day after taking the stage win in Greyton.
And still job done. However, those tactics, that cat and mouse that we saw earlier, did play into the hands of the fourth place team overall, and the chasers on the day, Hans Becking and Jose Diaz.
Well, the Overberg in the Western Cape, truly a spectacular part of the world to visit, and it's just one part of the wonderful terrain here in the Overberg. Of course, the Absa Cape Epic is one part. It is the pinnacle of the Epic series, which takes you riding bikes all over the world as well. We can take you on visits to Andorra and Switzerland and Australia and the like, so keep an eye on that Epic series. Meanwhile, we're going to be going down to the race village very shortly to see the presentation of the podium in the women's race, which has seen once again the race leaders in the orange jerseys secure that position, those jerseys on their shoulders again, not without difficulty today, because BMC Racing took the race to the leaders today and hung on just long enough to take the stage win. So we should be able to get to the podium now. There we go. Hayley Batten really worked tremendously hard on the front of the chase with Sofia Gomez-Villafan, and they were hunting down De Groot and Ferran Prevot, but they weren't able to catch them. Re-Robin Haley Preen tops his third step for the second day in a row for this pair, the all South African private client holdings pair, who are acquitting themselves quite brilliantly here. Hayley Batten and Sofia Gomez-Villafan in second place for 91 Songo Specialized.
Big smiles and another stage win. BMC MTB Racing. Doreen Ferran-Prevot.
And another step up and another step towards a combination that are growing and learning and racing better and better every single day. Pauline Ferran-Prevot, she said in her own words, she was on fire today. And Robin de Groot just had to hang on, and she hung on superbly today. Stage win for BMC MTB Racing, and they are getting closer and closer. It might run out of stages, but there's still plenty to happen before we get to Val de Vie and Palm. And big opportunities await these riders up the road.
Oh yes, when you saw them, they took just over a minute over their rivals, 91 Songo Specialized, but BMC MTB Racing, they can no longer afford the tactics of just chipping away at that lead. They're going to need to make back some chunks of time on 91 Songo Specialized, who look imperious in that jersey, that leader's jersey, the orange jerseys, and it's going to take a lot to unseat them. They're showing huge maturity and excellent powers of recovery. Every day they come back and they're ready for action. So there's a lot of work to be done for BMC MTB Racing if they want to chip into that lead. It's 11 minutes.
Especially because we have seen a specialized team here, they're just rock solid every single day, and that's why they find themselves in the orange jersey yet again today. Good solid performance by this team, and you can see spirits are high. There's a good vibe within the team, and especially between these two who just continue to grow together as a team and show very mature partnership in this race already, so it's good to see.
It's not the dominance we've seen in previous years, and certainly the last 6 victories that the trade team, the specialized factory racing team have shown in the last 6 years, as we said. It's still to play for, and it's still a close battle, but still a comfortable lead, and they look comfortable as well in those jerseys. They look like everything is completely under control, and the women's racing today was left us with some surprises, and certainly some action out on the trails today. Everything was together earlier on in the race, and clear that the action would start to happen in the Rocky Horror section and of the trail, with the steep climb at Rocky Horror just below the 30-kilometer mark, and all eyes on the Bakenskop section. Ariane Luthi, having had a bad day yesterday, struggling with ailments and just not quite on the pace. But on the pace clearly is Pauline Ferran-Prevot. She did say earlier she was absolutely on fire, and close in attendance, of course, the orange jerseys and the red jerseys, the all-African, Absa African jerseys, faces Roller, the best South African team, the best African team, and clearly also on a high from their stage win yesterday.
And then a selection happened. It was clear that Pauline was feeling really good, pushing the pace up the front, managing to take her partner Robin with her, and they actually opened up a gap to the rest of the field, which was now a chasing group of Faces Roller, for example, that we see here. Unfortunately, they suffered a flat tire and had to deal with that. They managed to get the hole fixed, re-inflate the tires, but it also meant that at the front now it was actually only the specialized team and the private client holding team to do the chase, to try to chase the BMC Racing down. They're back up and going, but now they find themselves on their own, not having the benefit of working together with the team. And at the front is once again the BMC MTB Racing team just continuing to open up this gap here.
We just see them, they're riding with the Masters category, but Masters riders taking great care not to interfere with the racing. Pauline Ferran-Prevot spending most of the time, in fact all of the time at the front, and allowing Robin de Groot to enjoy the slipstream, and just slightly not having to put in as much effort with the slipstreaming effect, offering her 20% advantage. Robin de Groot not on the best of days today, but in direct contrast with Pauline Ferran-Prevot, who clearly has fantastic legs and is really riding herself into this race. She had a very bad day on stage 1, the second day of the Absa Cape Epic. After the prologue, they won the prologue, but the orange jerseys still keeping everything under control and chasing them down, gaining time. They had a mechanical earlier on, and some wire went into the derailleur of Sofia Villaphana, and just keeping things under control, dealing with those mishaps really well. And that's all what it's about, is the master, is really whoever the master of the damage control. And that's all about just keeping any of those mishaps, which inevitably happen on the Absa Cape Epic. There are always things along the way that threaten the campaign, but clearly on a great day is BMC MTB Racing in contrast with stage 1.
And the theme of the day is kind of the last 10Ks in the women's race. It essentially came down to a time trial between the Specialized team and the BMC team. We saw the BMC team struggling with the teamwork. They weren't as efficient as the Specialized team. We can see Pauline eager to get to the finish line, but you don't win this race unless you have your partner with you. And it looked a little bit less in sync, but still they managed to hold on to the lead even though it shrunk all the way to the finish line to take yet another stage win.
Yeah, they clawed back time, but not enough to get ahead of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot. And a celebration for these two as Robin de Groot dug so deep to hang on to the steering wheel of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. It really was a superb, in the end, a superb team effort, although we saw a lot of the yo-yoing as Pauline perhaps going, as she was saying there, perhaps a little too hard for Robin, but she managed to hang on. And then Batten and Gomez Villafan, 1 minute and 12. They were 3 minutes and 35 at 57 Ks, 2:35, and then 1:26, and they just kept chipping away, ran out of trail on the 82-kilometer stage, but they secured the orange jerseys. Third place again for the private client holdings pair of Marie Rabi and Hayley Preen in the women's stage. A second podium finish in consecutive days here in Greyton on the Absa Cape Epic. Cloudy skies over the Western Cape today and the Overberg, but conditions will be welcomed by the field. Not just those who have finished now that have been watching over the last few hours, but the hundreds and hundreds who are still out there making their way towards the finish. So the general classification in the men's race going into the stage 5 tomorrow is Andreas Sterwald and Martin Stosek of Canyon Northwave MTB, who hold a 4 minute and 48 second lead over the rock and roll team from Germany, Speed Company Racing, Georg Egger and Lukas Baum. They really brought some dynamic racing here and injected some real spirit to the race in their first Absa Cape Epic journeys. Matt Beers and Chris Blevins won the stage today, 6 minutes and 50 seconds down. Do not discount them from being a little higher in the standings come the end of the week. Becking and Diaz, well, they benefited from the cat and mouse game earlier today, 11 minutes and 40 seconds down. Uber and Schneller now in 5th place, 26 minutes down. Schurter and Foster lost huge time today. Lars Foster's lights went out big time today. Scott Stram, 33 minutes and 35 seconds down. Perhaps if he finds his legs later in the week, they'll go for a stage win. Owen Gesmar are now the preeminent De Willier Pirelli team, the Pirelli factory team, in 7th place. Morton Svensson of Santa Cruz, and then De Toy and Hubert, well, they hung on to the red jerseys, but they suffered today because Bontekoning and De Toy made some inroads into their overall holder of that jersey, and they are in 11th place, the second of the South African teams for insect science. Ndebele and Selala, 34th overall in the Exaro Academy 1 team. They are the leaders of the Exaro category at the moment. And we have tomorrow's stage to look forward to, stage number 5. It's going to be another transition stage from Greyton to Stellenbosch, and it'll see Hayley Batten and Sofia Gomez Villafan take an 11 minute and 6 second lead over Pauline Ferrand-Prévot and Robin de Groot, who are now in 2nd place by just over 4 minutes ahead of Lil and Strauss of Faces Roller Puncture, scuppering their hopes of a stage win today. Luty and Wakefield have lost big time today, over 11 minutes back on Lil and Strauss, with Rabi and Preen 49 minutes back, but they are riding themselves into some serious form as the week progresses. In the other categories, in the Masters, the NTT Masters, Carl Platt and Christoph Sauser leading by over half an hour from CS Bonau, the Fit to Bike and Natural Berry team, and Craig Uriah and Andrew Divinage have ridden themselves back into the podium position. The defending champions now 33 minutes down on the superstar pairing, the Epic Legends pair, 5 wins each in the NTT Masters lead. In the purple jerseys of the Grandmasters, Brenchens and Azevedo, as you were, an hour and a half a lead over Richard Lurie and Thorkild Nielsen, with Schneider and Oelty in third place for Garmin Schneider, 1:38 down. In the mixed, I'm not sure that they're all in. I don't think they are, so we'll reflect on that in our highlights show. That'll be later on tonight. Well, this is the Absa Cape Epic, the 18th edition of the Absa Cape Epic, the race that measures all, and it is the pinnacle of the Epic series, and there are a lot of events to come in the Epic series, so you want to have a look at this and get your entries in for these Ride the World. There's no better way to do it than in the Epic series. Well, the Absa Cape Epic is the pinnacle of the Epic series, and you can enter for the 2023 event in a year's time on Monday for next year's events. So get your fingers ready to enter, because you want to take part in this. Tomorrow is a day of transition, stage 5, the second longest of the day, 115 kilometers, and 3 significant climbs to deal with in between their journey to Stellenbosch as they go up the Rusty Gate climb. Almost from the gate they go straight up that Rusty Gate climb, then Franschhoek Pass, a road climb and descent, and then Helshoorte Pass and some Botmaskop climbs, and then the finish at the Stellenbosch Kutzenberg Fields. They'll go through Kaimor, that's the climb over Helshoorte Pass and down Botmaskop and into the town of Stellenbosch and the finish. That is lying in wait on stage number 5. 2,400 meters of climbing awaits the riders. Some 427 finished yesterday, and I'm sure they'll all be keen to get closer and closer to home.
Yeah, well, the shift in terrain we're seeing as the riders transition to Stellenbosch and over Franschhoek Pass, that's a tar climb and a tar descent to certain sections of it. But all eyes on that final climb, Botmaskop. Really important for any teams in touch there to take note of that climb. It's a tricky climb and, of course, a dangerous descent at the end of it.
That's what awaits stage number 5 as the journey continues, as we bring you closer and closer to the grand finale here in Paarl. And wherever you are around the world, I'm sure that what you have been watching, if you're a mountain biker, if you're a cyclist, it doesn't mean if you're not a mountain biker that you can't come and do this event, as we've seen. Riders from all different disciplines and athletes from all different disciplines have committed to taking on the Absa Cape Epic and are going really, really well here. So as I said a little earlier, the entries for the 2023, the 19th edition of the race that measures all, open on Monday, the day after the final day here. So get prepared. That's a race in itself. I know there's a great demand on the entries, so get ready to push that enter button. It's been another great day of the Absa Cape Epic, stage 4 under the belt for some of the field. There's a lot who's still making their way to Greyton.
The journey is still long. So a lot of good racing still to come. It's very open and a lot of good action awaits us tomorrow. In the men's field, we'll have to see if the speed racing company is still carrying that momentum. And in the women's race, we'll have to see if the BMC MTB Racing will have to pay for a solid effort like today. Seems like whenever they had a really good day, it's often followed by a little bit, not so good day.
Well, let's see what how Robin de Groot handles the recovery of tonight. But if there's one thing that we can say for certain is that the leaders in the women's category, the riders in the orange jerseys, that is 91 Songo Specialized, they look really very much in sync, which is very important for a campaign. If you want to do well at the Absa Cape, if you want to win, it's important that that partnership is 100% tight.
And we have Canyon Northwave, the leaders in the men's race here at the Absa Cape Epic. They look equally solid and composed as they aim at winning this Absa Cape Epic for the first time. More drama tomorrow on stage 5. Join us for that then. Until then, cheers.